with regard to national interests. Now, I have been following the work of the Africanist press over the past 2 years, and I have been impressed with the information and the courage, especially, that this press institution have shown over the past couple of years with what they put out there in the best interest of Sierra Leone. Some of them, some of them that these types of conversations need to be had in our country. There are many parts to this, where we are now. In other words, there have been other things happening before this that have been following with regard to elections. For example, we looked at articles from the Africanist press that spoke to the National Electoral Commission, or that calls itself Electoral Commission Sierra Leone today. Now, one of those articles spoke to the salary increases across the board, from the commissioner of NEC, Mr. Kone, down to drivers and house help. All of them received salary increases at NEC. Also, in another article by the Africanist press, we saw how there was some shifting of positions into what the article that stated were APC strongholds, for want of a better way to put it. That also caught my attention when I read about, especially the fact that some of these people that were moved into these areas were cited as, not so honest in terms of what they did in the elections of 2018. Beyond that, you look at Statistics Sierra Leone, for example. They just had a census, a midterm census for the first time in our country's history. This press released some documentation that showed that there are already boundary limitations marked out before the first count, before the president, who was the first person they counted, was counted. So we look at these things. National Electoral Commission, you look at what Stats Sierra Leone has been doing over the past year and a half. And I must say, with regard to Stats Sierra Leone, there were some issues. It was National Election Watch that first started saying, this is not the right time, this doesn't make sense, and so on and so forth. Then came the EU press release that said, doing boundary limitation stuff is not necessarily healthy going into an election year. And then ultimately, even the World Bank.
Can I intervene?
Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to make sure that I know we have other people who are not necessarily from Sierra Leone who are looking at this conversation. So can we do the conversation in Creole, if possible?
It'll be easier for me.
I know, because I know some of the Creole will be mixed with English, but for the benefit of our people in Sierra Leone,
let's break it down in Creole. Why not? Creole is similar to English. So let me continue.
Yeah, thank you.
Are we good? Mm-hmm. Okay, so as I've been saying, the point why they try for me, I was saying, not to this so now gets this serious implication for the elections next year, June 24, 2023. We don't look at what's going to happen in our National Electoral Commission, where they raise salary there for everybody, from the commissioner down to possibly they go cook in a house help. The second thing I'm going to talk about now, Start Salon. Me personally, I don't been Start Salon the SG for at least a year and a half. I call it census, bogus midterm census, because there was really no need for it, but it had to be done, as you now go see during the discussions why it had to be done. The third thing now, this National Civic Registration Authority, NCRA, NACRA for short. There's about a couple of years or a year and a half ago or so, they may get a lot of issues with registering Sierra Leoneans. In fact, well, maybe I'm going to prove me wrong, but up to 30-40% perhaps that's all they have in terms of whether they don't count our country, or the only national identification number our country. So I give you the background of them thing also because they all add up to how we do so now. Some of them also will not for be know what's them. Will not for be know if not been get person where they watch them judiciously over time. Will not for be know. Now, for add all them and they come to how this now in a parliament with 2 billion. One name, the Public Elections Act, or the bill now, Public Elections Bill for 2022. And then the other one, what would they talk about? Proportional representation. I don't, what's in the bill name again? Anyway, the second bill we're going to do with proportional representation in Parliament. I think it's called the something bill. But these two have been put in Parliament and parliamentarians are discussing it right now as we talk. I watch them this morning, the discussion them. But me, I don't really see any zeal for parliamentarian them. So now then thing they also with the can talk about today now. And I get person Chernoh, we probably be able to tell you a whole lot more about waiting in thing with them bill there also. Because waiting we see now for say Parliament and the government of Sierra Leone, including parliamentarians who belong to the opposition, they try to discuss this bill also and push them forward 1 year before elections. So we'll talk about the implications then. Now, especially the Public Elections Act 2022, we get some serious implications for we elections next year. Now, when the talk say, most people the way you talk about this year, they say the elections are next year. Okay, yes, elections are next year, but the registration now just about a month away from today, or 2 months at most. In September will start. So without much ado, and giving that overall background, I want to pass on now to Master of Denka Tiaso, Chernoh Alpha Ember. We don't really do good work for our country. So, Mr. Ba, first question I want to ask you. Now, who's one panel area first you go on for talk about? And if now the Public Elections Act, what thing I didn't think them will really you go on for make we learn and understand more about?
Yes, thank you very much. And I want for also recognize the number of people who will come in and also remind you also as the host for pay attention to the waiting room. I don't know, I think, the waiting room, so people will be able to join. And before we begin to talk about the bills, I don't know if we get rules or method how people can participate, if we will tell them one thing so that.
Yes, we do. We get ground rules. First of all, everybody will come in, they come in as muted. That means enable talk. However, after the presentation and Chernoh in the discussion, we go open up for a few questions. But also, we can utilize the chat. I'm going to pay keen attention to the chat. We are going to bring questions and they from there in front of Chernoh. The reason why we don't want people to talk because we don't want any kind of disruptions, so make sure so we get to program on time and let it run smoothly. That's what we believe. So on that note, I turn over back to you, Chernoh.
Yes. So before I continue with the Public Elections Act, I also want to remind with people on Zoom and the online audience that this first discussion, now the beginning of an ongoing series where we try for launch, because we find out a number of things that we don't publish on Sierra Leone, a number of articles now. We don't pass almost more than 50 articles dealing with the corruption and the current financial mismanagement in Salone. And since March 1 to now, we start March 1, 2020. So I think almost 2 years, 6 months. We don't continuously publish on the ongoing financial operation of the government of Sierra Leone, and where articles cover almost all major sectors of the government, from the office of the president, the chief minister's office, the Ministry of Finance. Virtually, there is hardly any major sector of the administration, from the National Civil Aviation Authority. We don't talk about airline taxis and all of this. We don't go, when I can remember, it's difficult for even keep track of all of the publications we don't make. But key things that we need to establish. As at the time when the Africanist press been intervene into the situation at Salone, virtually everything we've been talk about corruption, and corruption we've been deal with the previous government, corruption dealing with the APC. So until we step in, almost largely the corruption of the government of Julius Maada Bio has never occupied international conversation. That no means the Sierra Leoneans in and outside of Sierra Leone no know say the government corrupt, but we can claim, say, and rightly so, that the first time the corruption of the government become really an international affair, now when the Africanist press publications hit the international media space. And they've been reflected and cited by the BBC. Now, the first time, the corruption involving the wife of the president, the current first lady of Sierra Leone, was reported on the BBC and discussed. The second one was Radio Bella, and all of these international media channels. So what we try for emphasize here, now the fact that the impact of the Africanist press work has gone beyond the borders of Sierra Leone, to the extent that when the president was being interviewed last year by the BBC, and of course, CNN, details of we publications were referenced. Part of the questions include details of we publications. So virtually there is no place in Sierra Leone, perhaps for people within a salon, and the feedback we will get from this distance, who have remained unaware of the publications that we're making. But also we realize, plenty of people, and perhaps because of the level of literacy, or even people who read, there is always the tendency for make them, them not get the real meaning of some of the publications they publish. And this don't become obvious because sometimes people come to me with questions about what is this and what is this. I have to go through individually explaining. So we don't resolve now this time, say, would they begin hold online conversations of this nature where we go build a direct relationship with the reading audience of the Africanist press, both within Sierra Leone and outside of Sierra Leone, including non-Sierra Leoneans. And apart from what you've seen on Facebook, the Africanist press website, I would encourage people to subscribe, so that if you get an email, subscribe. They will try to make sure, say, we tie website again to Facebook, and to WhatsApp and other forms of social media, so that once we publish on the website, somebody don't need to forward and to you individual, you go directly on your phone. So, but the website right now, we get over 650,000 active subscribers. If we check the number of Sierra Leoneans, they are not up to 500. Why important for me for tell Una, therefore explain to Una perhaps why some of the publications have been cited by international media organizations, international media institutions, or international policy foundations, and the extent to which conversations they go. So for we, in fact, the use of social media, it has been for the benefit of the Sierra Leonean audience, but we don't need for publish now Facebook or WhatsApp perhaps for make the international community and the greater majority of readers over the years get access to the publications. The website has been the fundamental channel for the distribution of information across the world. And the reason why I tell you again, there has been for the last 2 years constant attack on the website, mostly from people located or from locations coming from Sierra Leone, both from New England, from Hill Station, from Lumley, and different places. With time, we therefore begin publish the map showing the specific locations in Sierra Leone where online attacks to bring down the Africanist Press website has come from, and perhaps locate specific building areas where we think say that they so for help you understand. There has been attacks on the Africanist Press outside of the borders of Sierra Leone, some from Nigeria, some from Kenya, some from the United States, increasingly Texas and California. But on a percentage level, when we assess them, only 20% of the online operation for bring down the work of the Africanist Press has come outside of Sierra Leone. Most of it has happened from people or places or operators out within Sierra Leone where they try to bring down website. On several occasions, they've been able to do that. We, sometimes in a day, we spend 4 or 5 times putting the website on, put it where they go off. Some of them will not even announce them because we say, okay, it's an ongoing fight. While some of them, I know they take notice of that because largely the distribution of information, when I don't get access to them through Facebook and through WhatsApp. So when I don't know this war, the attack on the Africanist Press on the internet. And why it's important for me to talk about this, now for telling you why also we decide for move from the website to Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp to direct community broadcast. So what have we done? We are currently setting up our operations outside of Nigeria to see how we go able for the communicate with people of Sierra Leone via virtual radio, a virtual radio process, whether an online radio. So far, we know say within the United States and outside of the United States, if we current operations allow, you go able to listen to this week conversation without necessarily tuning into the internet by dialing an access code. So we explore the possibility of making sure people within Africa, especially West Africa and Sierra Leone, go able listen to conversations in future without necessarily coming online on Facebook. By, for example, if you dial 117 or 133, some kind of a free access code where it will allow you for listen to we, just like they listen to FM radio. Why are they announced this? This now what we done they do carry on now for see how they do, because there has been a constant effort of the government of Sierra Leone, and the various agencies of the government of Sierra Leone, and now by extension, sectors of the opposition, where they decide, say, we publications, not for circulate. And one
recording in progress.
One way they don't do that. Now for canvas sections of the media for making them not interviewing at radio stations and saloon or TV stations. And for me, as a Sierra Leonean, having worked in Sierra Leone as a journalist at least for 20 years, this is not the first time in these 2 years where a national television not ever interviewed me regarding the work. It never happened in the 10 years of the Anesbai Kuruma government when I was there. It never happened. Every radio station that interviewed me in Sierra Leone before under the APC of Anesbai Kuruma. This is not the first time in the history of me own practice as a journalist, in at least in 20 years, that radio stations and television stations, including the national television, have refused deliberately to interview me, not because I'm complaining, but for telling at the extent of the effort of the government for keeping conversations away from public access. So we don't decide for work on granting access to the people of Sierra Leone, because access to information is a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution of Sierra Leone and guaranteed by international law. So this process, this first meeting, when I go for understand, so you people have become part of the experiment, the first experiment for see what kind of approach the Africanist Press is going to use moving forward for make sure that the people of Sierra Leone not lost access to alternative information, real information regarding the operations of government. And I want for assure when I say, this is not just about the government of the SLPP government led by Julius Maada Bio. It is work that preceded the Anesbai Kuruma government. The Africanist Press was founded in 2002, established. And we worked on grow. We even published books and other forms of work we do for policy agencies that are not even published. So over the last 4 years, we worked on become much more of our interest to the people of Sierra Leone because of the nature of the repression in the country and the effort of the government for capture everything, and including access, prevent people access to information, control access to information. Even though we get access to information law in the country and access to information agency, we now get there's a process to gatekeep information. So this discussion today, as important as the subject matter is, now for also inform una of the development, the institutional development, institutional thinking of the Africanist press regarding what the situation in Sierra Leone has informed us and what kind of policies and processes we are putting in place for make sure we have not lost access to the information. And this is not a secret, which is why we are making sure it's also available to even the opponents of the Africanist press, the government of Sierra Leone, their allies in the media, in the political parties and others to understand, say, we have arrived at a point in the history of the world where dictators cannot prevent journalists or citizens from having a conversation on questions that matter. So, and this is also part of transparency because our work is not a clandestine work. Now work way legitimate and credible. So we have to make it available. So that kind of conversation is ongoing. Basically, what I try to say, we try part of the discussion to see whether this kind of conversation will be weekly or then will be continuous daily broadcast or perhaps every 2 weeks. So in the future, you will have people who are non-Sierra Leoneans that we invite to talk about specific expert questions, including different other places. Perhaps again, depending on what technology allows, we will, apart from our base in Nigeria, we will try to operate also from the United States so that we'll get the reliable technology just for giving the access to information and independent access to information. So I want to assure you that. Now, moving to today's conversation. Of course, Mr. Massally, I must also thank him as one of the dedicated Sierra Leoneans who have not only volunteered his time and expertise, but also his commitment to ensuring that the dissemination of information relating to the work of the Africanist press as it relates to Sierra Leone cannot be stopped. And what does that mean? By December this year, we noticed an increase in effort by WhatsApp administrators for remove any individual who was participating in the circulation of information coming from Africanist press. And one of the few people that they've not been able to frustrate is Amadu Massally from our own knowledge. There are other people who they've done that too. So I want to use this opportunity on behalf of the press for express with appreciation to Ram and also call on people on this this meeting for help. We thank him as well because it's a very difficult thing when you circulate information, participate in conversation, you get insulted, you get harassed, you get all kinds of how they call them, BS, as the Americans call them, coming your way. So for Sierra Leone dedicated to the extent that he formed the first Africanist press WhatsApp group, bringing people from all different shades of opinion into that group. And now we get multiple groups now that we've set up just to disseminate information. So if you then we say a member of each of we WhatsApp mailing group, the reason we're not been set up that kind of groups then, but we decide to do it now because we see say WhatsApp administrators in Sierra Leone, we are preventing the circulation of information, a government effort now backed by certain sectors of the opposition who are allies of the government. They work with Massally for give them a second term. So they cannot challenge the validity of our publications, but then they try to frustrate the circulation of information, including telling their own people not to circulate our information. So we don't take upon the responsibility now, say we circulate information to every corner, every village, every place, not just now in Sierra Leone, but to every area of the world. And that process we explore. And this process again now for bringing us closer to people behind the press so that we feel involved in our activities by having these direct conversations and with the institutionalize them. So I'm not going to belabor too much on that, but I feel say as part of a committed audience, it's our responsibility to inform you and also carry you along in this journey of information dissemination, a new age of the promise of this technology and technological revolution has provided to citizens of the world for take upon the responsibility, not just of managing technology for the development of society, but also for build communities of progress and consciousness, which is what this process of learning and work don't inform me. So now we get two significant documents. Were very important to our lives as citizens of Sierra Leone. And because they relate to the politics of Sierra Leone, some members of our press are audience, they're part of the audience. They decide for hold on their views because they are not citizens of our country. So they don't want to, perhaps, a part of reporting it, give opinions, me as Sierra Leonean. And what I say here is because I'm a citizen of Sierra Leone and I get the same rights as anybody in Sierra Leone. So I am making those comments I'm making these comments today as a citizen of Sierra Leone, apart from my official responsibility or professional duty as a journalist, but I'm making comments here as a citizen of Sierra Leone who is directly affected by the developments in Sierra Leone. And only for telling us, right now I cannot go to Sierra Leone because if I go there is every possibility that they will not just put me in jail, they will kill me. The government has committed that on paper. And we're already familiar with the conversation about that. So basically, I consider myself, rightly so, based on the available evidence, that the government of Sierra Leone has decided to exile me because of my commitment to expose the corruption as alone. And members of the opposition have also shown that they are committed, they are united with the government around that question, and which will form part of our conversation today. So having said that, we get two important documents. The Public Elections Act, or the Public Elections Bill of 2022, and the Political Parties Act of 2022, two important documents that the government of Sierra Leone decided for introduce at this time, a year to the election, as Mr. Massally say. We therefore do with two aspects, hinge on two aspects of the rights of citizens. One, therefore, deal with the right to association, when a fundamental right of every citizen, that the Political Parties Act. The Political Parties Act, that the law will govern the organization, operation, and conduct of political parties, will allow citizens to constitute a political organization of their own or belong to a political organization of their own and participate in the political process of their country. But basically, it's one of the avenues where the Constitution provides through which citizens exercise the right to association, in this case, political association. So that constitutional right. Now, the Constitution provides we forget an institution, we for regulate how we exercise, the constitutional right to political association. And that institution is called the Political Parties Registration Commission, PPRC. And they get the laws. And so in 2002, the Political Parties Act was established as a law with a guide, not just the operation of the commission. We're responsible for regulating the citizens' their right to association, political association, but also their right for form political parties and get views of their philosophy of their own and articulate that philosophy. So then called that one the Political Parties Act of 2002. Now, as we talk now, this year, right now, this week, parliamentarians begin for discourse how for change that law that was set up in 2002 with the law for deal with how you form a political party, how they run a political party, how political parties, of course, I all know about PPRC and the role they don't play, for example, with the APC court cases and drama and petitions and all of that. And so now they want to change the law. So the question is, we have to ask yourself, what in the new law where political party, where these parliamentarians they talk about regarding the Political Parties Registration Commission and also the exercise of people and rights to association, political association. That law is before Parliament now, or the bill is before Parliament for discussion and approval. The second important law, which also deals with the constitutional right of citizens, is the right to vote, the right to participate in the electoral process, both as a candidate for elected office and as a voter, as a citizen that wants to elect people to represent you in elective office. Basically, this now the law will govern with democratic arrangement, will govern with representative democracy. So parliamentarians don't decide for introduce a new legislation, a new law, we then call the Public Elections Act. This right now you can call it a Public Elections Bill 2022, where for change the process and the method and the laws governing the conduct of elections in Sierra Leone. And this law also for replace a similar law we already exist, we therefore deal with. That law was called the Public Elections Act of 2012. Okay, so this year, this week, the parliamentarians bring in front of the parliament proposals for change two of the most important laws we therefore deal with politics, with political arrangement, we right to vote, we right to participate in the democratic arrangement of the country. And then decide for do this without publicity and without basically informing, without not inform the citizens. So we learn about this. We don't learn about this process, say they go on. So we wait until the 20th of June, when they don't present the first bill before Parliament. We then call the Public Elections Act 2022. They begin say, now they don't start what they call pre-legislative conversation, pre-legislative meeting. The meeting where they introduce this bill in the Parliament and parliamentarians begin look at them and admit them for debate in the Parliament, admit them for discussion, reading and debate in the Parliament, and then pass them. So we were shocked by the fact that parliamentarians, well, I mean shocked, we, the Africanist press, we don't know about the process that Parliament and the politicians' cabinet has been going through for develop this legislation from the, throughout the process of drafting this legislation in the Attorney General's office, the Law Officers Department, and the meetings preceding this conversation, up to the point where they put about. We never said anything because we want to see what in these parliamentarians and the government would do before then table this, carry this in a Parliament. And as it turned out, it was taken to Parliament without the notice of the public. So a post basically triggered the conversation by saying, as other public conversations that go on, police brutality and other kinds of conversation we don't go on from March to now, where everybody energized and they focus on that, especially on social media. When I not forget say, this week, parliamentarians are now in front of Parliament, two of the most important legislation we got for deal with, a right to association and right to political association and right to vote. And then I raised also the question, say, it is interesting that parliamentarians decide to discuss this without consultation and without input from citizens who are going to be affected by this legislation, by these two important changes in the laws. So when I already aware of the discussion, there was silence and all of that, and argument after argument. Then we went ahead after saying this and say parliamentarians for make the document available to the public, therefore make this lawyer available. So then we see response from parliamentarians, then say, okay, they don't call for the soft copy. Some of them said they've distributed it. And we find out, as I talk now, I believe, say, perhaps if we check, most of the people in this meeting, perhaps 80% of we, except because we don't already make them available now, but not even see the document, they never get the copy of the document. And that means, say, perhaps 80% of Sierra Leoneans don't get access to this document. And even those who have gotten access to it, if you check in they honestly, many of them no go down, basically read what is this law they about. So we've been done publish one article on one aspect of the law, the election law. And at that I want to focus this discussion because we're not going to spend the whole time and talk about the whole law, which deals with the question of the voter register. The question of the voter register and the proposal regarding the voter register and why that's important. So we article where we publish talk say there has been changes in the voter register, the details regarding the voter register, basically the process of registration. They don't change significant aspect of the process of registration, and that affect everybody who go for vote. we go for register for vote. So we decide for draw that attention to the public because this one is a common man's issue. There are other issues we don't talk about the law, proportional representation, that therefore deal with how we elect MPs or how the parliament is going to be populated if this law passes, and issues around the term limit regarding the term limit regarding when to organize presidential elections, and a range of other issues, including 30% quota for women, you know, what they call to seem, or diaspora voting. All of these questions, they inside the new legislation. But for this conversation, since I the first one at the introduction of the conversation, I don't spend a lot of time for giving an overview of what is important. So I go on for, make we just focus on the question of the voter register and see what that tiny aspect of the new law or the new proposal for change the law therefore affect voters, and we right to vote, and we right to for register as voters, and why important for we for discuss them and understand them. So I don't know at this point, before I go into the details of them, I go on for take a pause first, because I don't say a lot of things, and see if there are questions, or if the moderator goes give a summarize some of the things that I say. So before we move, or maybe ask a question, might not just be would say, or if we allow take a few questions from the other, because I say the chat room has some questions. Before we go into the discussion of the document, Mr. Massally, I'm passing it over to you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for that warm-up day. It was amazing to me how you were able to recite all here. So I nothing see the read notes. I mean, just off head. I guess the intimacy of what you're going to do and is strong. And you articulate them very well. And thank you for reminding me about the Political Parties Act. They call them Proportional Representation Act. Same difference. But very good. We get one question, at least what I don't see, but I feel it's premature for now, because the question is say, so what's in here for happy now if Paupa force them bills through Parliament? That kind of question I will have for no answer at the end, yeah. But it left to you. You know the man, me now, just the moderator on the way in between you and the audience. But very good. I like the way how you set up. Say yes, indeed, we get many issues there inside this particular bill, but arguably, probably this why you want to talk about the most important. Well, to me now, the most important thing when we don't see inside the bill. So it left to you. If you want to answer this man in question, Mr. Lamin Danke, we can do that, or we can keep on for. I mean, maybe later on in the discussion. It's up to you.
No, I think before we talk about what will happen if you then decide for go ahead and force the legislation or then pass the legislation, because I understand say Parliament don't even start the conversation today. In fact, they don't question first the legislative procedures with a different conversation, different issue, the procedure regarding how to approach Parliament with such kind of law. But interesting to we that kind of conversation seem to have come up in Parliament only after over 10 days when the bill has gone through pre-legislative arrangement or discussion or conversation. And from the conversation today where we are in at the Parliament, a first reading of it has supposedly happened. And I think they were in the second reading. I hope I did not I know misread or Miss Yeri, what did I say? You will correct me, Amadu, Mr. Massally, in case that's not what it is. But from what I understand, parliamentarians were debating the procedures regarding Section 108 of the Constitution, that the document itself, that the piece of legislation require a constitutional amendment, and therefore deal with the constitutional questions first before they would say. But then the question is, why did they have to wait until this stage? And the responses of the ruling party MPs to the opposition party MPs themselves is amazing. But that's a separate conversation where I think we will come to that regarding where Parliament is with the current legislation, with the current bills or the current proposals to amend the Political Parties Act and the Public Elections Act. We'll come to that, and what will happen in case nothing changed from the current, how the document and what are the implications. Where that therefore calls to the country and to citizens within the country and outside of the country. But for now, if no other question, Nodi, or no other comment regarding what I have said.
There is another question. Okay, sorry, okay. Go ahead.
Regarding what I don't say about the expansion, access to information, and the plans of the Africanist and this open discussion series, and how the format get for change or how we get for improve, then we can move into the legislation itself.
Well, so here's another question from Alberta. Did you just address that? No?
No, you go for read the question to me. I'm not saying.
There you go. What are the legal implications of this? And is the legal system per se aware of this change? And what are their reactions to this?
Yeah, I think that's what they can talk about now regarding within the law, within this change. We're not able to change. We're able to discuss everything in the legislation. We talk about 75-page document, and we will continue this conversation as we go, as we progress, as time they progress, depending again the developments in Parliament. I think Parliament they meet on Tuesday again for begin talk about how to address the legislative aspect of the constitutional requirements for making them even begin debate the bill. But yes, you cannot have that kind of idea for change the law without people they not even know why for change them. Every law has an intention. There's an intent. For example, if you say we want for make law say all man for what they wear for change how people in the dress, there's a reason why you decide for say you for recommend, you for make law, we for dictate how people then for dress or how many Pekin and people then for get in the country for regulate childbirth. There must be a reason. Either you believe say population the swell or people, So besides the content of a legislation, there is always the intent, the reason why governments or policymakers decide that they need legislation, they need a law for carry out a particular governmental activity or political activity. So that said, I want to also emphasize the fact that it is the function of Parliament to make law. Parliaments all over the world, now their own functional responsibility for make legislation, for make law. Parliament, part of their duty now for make law, examine, the legislative environment and make sure that they make law. And in so doing, Parliament for make law for advance the development of a country, advance the development of society, including the protection of the rights, the liberties, and the properties of citizens. So while we talk about this law, that is not to say Parliament not get right for pass an election law. That's not the point. But what we try to talk about, now the facts say, parliaments all over the world should not make bad laws. Okay, Parliament no they make law or no supposed to make law where they affect the development of the people of a country or the country itself. Parliament no for make law where for violate the rights, the liberties, or affect the properties of citizens. So in this case, we are having a conversation because we believe and don't see evidence within the content of this proposed law where Parliament will make say it is a law that is going to affect our rights and by extension affect with civil liberties. And by extension also, it will affect the safety of the country and thereby the properties of people. Because if a law leads to significant controversy to the point of conflict, it will lead to crisis. If it leads to crisis, it will affect the economy, it will affect other social aspects of society, including even the properties of people, the stability of a society. And bad law, now some of the impact out of a bad law, which is why next time citizens are engaged regarding this law. So what is the thing that we've considered as a potentially negative impact or law we get a negative impact on the rights of citizens? There is a provision in this current bill for change the electoral register. And that provision is in clause 13, 1A of the current bill. So I don't know if you be say, we go able to project that aspect of the document. If you go able for share them for we, Mr. Massally, so people go able to share them, or if you go read them for we, so people go read them. I think reading it, let's start by that, reading it, so people will see what we talk about in the current document, the Public Elections Act 2020, if I want, say, clause 13, 1A. You are muted. Okay.
All right. Yes.
I know I don't put you on the spot. I don't know if you get document in front of you, but
I do.
Okay.
I do. 13.1A. Well, I'm not sure this is the same one. Sorry. I mean, at the wrong clause at it too. 13.1A, that go. I have the document opened right in front of me. So 13.1A. 13.1, here it is. So 13.1A falls under part 3, starts off part 3 with the title Registration of Voters. And what we have here is, 1 second. Maybe I should read the whole sentence, but I go to 1A. Yeah. Okay.
We can go,
there shall a national, sorry?
You can start from top.
Yeah, this speaks for the register of voters.
Yes.
There shall be a national register of voters to be known as the register of voters, which shall contain A, the names and particulars of persons who are entitled to vote in public elections and referenda, including their ABCD or 1, 2, 3, 4 underneath that.
Yes. Including what?
Including 1, national identification number. 2, date and place of birth. 3, sex. And 4, signature or thumbprint.
Okay. So yeah. So in that proposed clause, we don't already see the introduction of new, the addition of what we call registration requirement, or the registration details that a voter is required to have, or to include, what the registration officer need for include in the voter register. And that addition in itself, now a change in the existing law that we have been using since 2012. And that existing, and that revision is, I think, in section 12 of the Public Elections Act of 2012. So I don't know if you get the document again, we can read that, maybe see the addition so that people will see what is added.
I do.
And okay, please go to section 12 of the existing.
Section 12 of the 2012 Act.
Where it says the voter register in the previous.
Okay, 1 second. Yes. So I'll go ahead and read again from part 3, register of voters and registration of voters. So it had a longer title that was shortened in the new bill.
Yeah.
There is hereby, well, 12.1. There is hereby established a national register of voters in this act, referred to as the Register of Voters, which shall contain the names of persons who are entitled to vote in public elections and referenda. 2, the Register of Voters shall contain, but shall not be limited to, the following particulars. A, the full name of the voter. B, the voter's date and place of birth. C, the voter's residential address at time of the registration. D, the voter's sex. E, the voter's signature and thumbprint. F, a column to indicate whether or not a voter has voted. G, date of registration and voting. H, the form of identification used. And I, the ward in which the voter is ordinarily resident.
Yes. So we find when you compare the two documents, the Public Elections Act of 2012 and the current proposed Public Elections Act of 2022, that is before Parliament, for their discussion, debate, and approval, you will find out, say, in that aspect of the voter register alone, 2 revisions have been made. Okay, one that you can identify is the addition of the national identification number as NIN as part of the new detail that should be added to the voter register. So basically, the voter register has been they don't alter the voter. They are proposing to alter the voter register to request the inclusion of the national identification number of everyone that is going to be registered as a voter. That's one. The second addition, the second revision is the replacement of the word and with the alternate or when it comes to the question of the voter's signature or thumbprint. Okay, in the previous act in 2012, the law provides that when you register, you do a signature and thumbprint. Okay, they use the word, the coordinating word, the coordinating, word, and. So preposition in this case. So now we have OR instead of and. That is what has been replaced in that section, in that particular section. So what are the implications? Because in any legislative changes, even a punctuation has its own implication. Okay, it carries its own implication, because even if you change a comma or a full stop to a comma, you get your own rationale. There should be a reason for that. There should be a reason for deciding to change a coordinating word, or a preposition, a verb, or any other operating word in itself, because the alteration of a particular word in any written sentence changes its meaning or the purpose for which you do it. So in this case, in that section are 2 changes only, and this is what we want to focus on. And then we will see the accompanying section or the accompanying clause as it is in section 24 in the current proposal, how the 2, can be read and perhaps understood, and whether it carries, what are the implications in your own judgment regarding, why it's important for citizens for pay emphasis on this kind of changes. So what is the NIN? The NIN is basically a national identification number. In the past, require, in 2012, according to the law, require an NIN. So if the law talks, say, where you come for register, when a voter turn up for register to a registration officer, the registration officer will take a name, in date of birth, all of the details, including a national identification number. If the national identification number is absent, the question we raise, can the voter be registered? Or even if the voter is registered, can he or she be considered as completely or properly registered? Okay, so in this case, it is obvious with the current proposal as it is, if it goes out and becomes a law, then we say it risks excluding the greater majority of potential voters, qualified voters for the next election. Because registration, mind you, is happening on the 4th of September. And today is the 30th of June. By Tuesday, when Parliament meet for continued and conversation on this legislation, we will now be in July. So why it's important for us to raise this conversation now? Because majority of potential voters in Sierra Leone and outside of Sierra Leone, including people in what we call the diaspora of Sierra Leone, who want to participate in the electoral process by going home to register, do not have a national identification number. Now we go examine other part of this proposed legislation. We deal with the ability of the Electoral Commission for organized, perhaps, opportunities for people to register, perhaps outside of Sierra Leone. or maybe vote outside of Sierra Leone, that's a different discussion, which we are not going to enter into for the purpose of this meeting. We want to limit our conversation, this first conversation, on the NIN and the implication. Now, last year, May, if all of you remember, the National Civil Registration Authority organized a national civil registration process. And many people in the Western area, in the northwest of the country, and in largely what could be considered opposition strongholds, were unable to easily register, including people in Freetown. And part of the problems were that the fact that the registration machines, they're not being available. There were issues with the technology, the access to the machines, insufficient technology, and all of them here, the reasons. So even as NACRA extend registration, there are still people who do not have their names or their details registered up to now. And why important? Because now NACRA, the NACRA issued national identification number, has been written into the, or proposed to be included in the national elections arrangement. So the question, what are the implications? How these people, with a name they're not in at the NACRA registered data, and they not get NIN, will participate in the elections? And whether there is sufficient time from now to the period we don't go start the registration and end registration, these people will have the opportunity of getting an NIN and be registered. Okay, so that's, for we, is a question that parliamentarians who are debating this particular, or who are discussing and are going to debate and approve this legislation, need for provide an answer to, in terms of how do they see the national identification number and its inclusion, why it was included, why it was added in the first place, why did they decide to think about including the national identification number into the electoral law. And in we own assessment of the situation, we knew there was a history. Now there's already a history to the process. They not just wake up one morning and say, we want to make national identification number in the new legislation. Okay, they not just wake up and decide for doing. It is part of governmental policy now, part of a policy with government, operational policy of the government of Sierra Leone. And this goes back to a document where we, Mr. They can share on the screen for everybody to see. So by the way, may I just announce upfront, say both legislations, both the Public Elections Act of 2012 and the Public Elections Act of 2022 as the bill, they are available on the Africanist Press website for free download. We don't also circulate now with various WhatsApp groups them. And anybody who want a copy, if you not get copies of both documents, we can also help to make them available. So people who are interested, including our viewers or participants in this meeting.
Chernoh.
So why did we raise the NIN as a first point of objection to the legislation, or a first point of concern to this proposed legislation? Now, the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, it is now a governmental policy. We came to understand that in early March, or the 4th of March, Parliament approved a 15-year contract that gave Construct Systems Sierra Leone Limited the right for begin, or the authority for begin produce national identification documents, including the production of NINs for citizens of Sierra Leone and residents of Sierra Leone. And this includes ECOWAS ID cards and all of that. So I will share my screen so that I will show people what they talk about, so they'll be able to see where we are coming from as an organization, what we mean by this. And share the document. I want to make you see. Oh, pardon me.
We don't see the film the week you watch.
No, I'm picking in game.
I know.
I get a scientist where they look Roblox. He makes a me Bobo, they play what you call Roblox. Okay, this is what I want to show you, people. I don't know if my screen.
Yes. Maybe you have for
enlarge them, right?
Yeah, maximize them.
Okay, in this document, as soon as they see, we get to call Naya agreement for the production and issuance of securitized multipurpose identity cards, national, non-national, and ECOWAS ID verification system and public infrastructure. Then, this is a national civil registration authority and construct systems Leone Limited. When I go for patient with women, will tell you now why would they show now this. So as you see, this contract for the production and issuance of securitized multipurpose ID cards was an agreement made on the 4th day of March 2022. There are so many things we can say about this agreement, regarding perhaps even the people who get this company and the interested parties in this company, and whether this agreement itself was basically approved by Parliament without following certain procurement rules and regulations and all of that, and whether due diligence was made in terms of the granting of this contract. But for the purpose of this conversation, we will limit. We know we're going to that one day. But an issue that we are going to look at as Africanist Press, we're going to publish details regarding this contract, the interest of the president in this contract, and the processes through which Parliament approved this contract, perhaps, and find out exactly whether Parliament been checked if this contract complied with procurement regulations or the process of bidding and arrangement and all of that. We get for come to whether it was even put on a public tender. But you see, this company basically, this agreement, Parliament signed this agreement, then they entered into this agreement on the 4th of March 2022, and this is the agreement where NACRA give to a company for begin produce ID cards. And that process means that the process to which people will begin get their NINs as well, because we go take ID card or documentation, then it will give you a national identification number that part of the process. So this agreement, this company, you see even the cost of the ID cards there. I will show you now all. 15 years, can you imagine? It's a 15 years contract given to this company. I'm not going to spend time to talk about this contract, the corruption arrangement relating to the granting of this contract and all of that, and how it was approved, and whether due diligence, if Parliament even carried out an investigation into this, or it's just one of those agreements that they just approve when it gets to them, But this conversation no go about that. I just want for skim through and show now. These are the March. So when Parliament approved this contract and authorized this company for carry on, you will see, all of these are the kind of ID cards where them plan for carry get for produce. And that this company will only begin do their work around October. Then when you go to the NACRA now, you find out, they also issue a press release after Parliament approved this agreement, announcing on the 25th of March, 2022, this is March we talk about. So, and this is important for note then steps there because it hinges on the history of the inclusion of the national identification number into the law that Parliament is currently discussing. So why we the reference then document, the government document for establish the fact the decision to include the national identification number into the new law is not an accidental decision. They not just wake up for doing. It is part of an ongoing systematized policy of the government of Sierra Leone that now you see update on the production of securitized multipurpose identity cards So basically, in this document, in this press release or statement, NACRA then tell we say, from now on, government don't already and parliament don't already approve the cabinet policy and grant this company the right for produce ID cards and moving for digitized system so that everybody should have an NIN. And as for the access of services therefore be based on the citizens then production of the national identification number. Then now I will go to the website again and show now a document where we publish dealing with, after we don't issue this agreement, this very, Mr. Massally, I don't know if you get the communique where we've been shared regarding when the government begin implement. So basically, after when they don't agree, say, I will stop the share for now and come back to the conversation. You get the document, right?
I do. The June one, that was dated June 1st, to start
Yes.
June 1st.
Yes.
Yes.
So I don't know if you're able to read and for we. The communique signed by the NACRA, the Immigration Department, and also the Minister of Labor and Social Security.
Yeah.
I can pull them from my phone if
Can you do that? Because I'm
Okay.
going to struggle a bit to locate the
I
document.
know.
Okay,
So-
wait a minute. Here it is. Is that it? No. Joint communique, the ministry. Here it is. 9.
By the way, make I just say we get Honorable AKK, right? As part of the audience or part of the people in this meeting. And he will already make a comment on Facebook, say he want for tell Parliament the own side of the story. So which is also important because now we can bring MPs into the thing. So when we finish the overview and address that, we will consider hearing what members of Parliament, where they are perhaps with the legislation.
I have the communique handy in my phone. You want me to read some parts of it or the whole thing? It's kind of long.
Just read the introduction and perhaps where it takes effect.
Okay. The NCRA, the Immigration Department of Sierra Leone, and the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, in fulfillment of their respective legal mandates and ensuring compliance with the Cabinet's conclusion of 2nd March 2022 and the subsequent ratification of the agreement between the National Civil Registration Authority and the Construct System Sierra Leone Limited, dated 17th March 2022, for the production of biometric and securitized national ECOWAS compliant and non-national identity cards. Oh, sorry, this is a long sentence. Identity cards, ID verification system, and public key infrastructure featuring a unique, non-reputable, and non-reusable national identification number. Linking, this is the same sentence, linking the mandatory use of the unique national identification number to access services that include, but not limited to, immigration services, residence and work permits, hereby agree as follows. Wow. That effective 1st June 2022, all applications for work permits, residence permits, passports, and other immigration services must, in emboldened and all caps, include the national identification number issued by the NCRA as a mandatory field. Number 2, that the security features of the NIN ensures people have one unique identity recorded, thereby removing cases of double or multiple identities per person, which may have security implications, may lead to pranks, identity manipulations, and fraud. Okay. Sorry. Number 3, the institutions signing this joint communique urge the general public to cooperate by providing the required mandatory field mentioned herein, the NIN. The signed joint communique dated 16th May 22 comes into effect on 1st June 2022. They did not mention the elections. This is my observation.
Yes.
They did not mention that it will be needed to register to vote at that time.
Yes. But it says services, where you look at the first one, it says included but not limited to.
Sure.
So basically, why is this important? Why is this important as a reference in this kind of conversation? Because already by the beginning of June 1, I got to project the document. I try for make arrangements.
Oh, okay, sure.
The document, maybe people can see what we talk about.
Maybe
Effective, what we just read about telling us, say, when Parliament approved the contract, we then give construct the right for begin produce ID cards. So basically, they say now effectively, then they begin operationalize the issuance, the smooth issuance of ID cards, and by extension, we take ID card, you not get NIN. So that arrangement was sealed, and the contract given to Construct for begin produce ID card and not begin produce ID card. As we talk right now, the production of identity cards is not in progress in Sierra Leone. They know the give ID card right now as we talk so. So because of the give ID card, it means if you go to NACRA for go take an NIN, you're not go able for basically get an NIN, you're not able to get an ID card. So if you go for register, go register right now for vote, then go for ask you for NIN. And that don't make an official policy, not just for register. Make I just project this document because I don't get it on my screen now. Make us see what they talk about.
Good.
Of course, because it would be easy for me people to say.
Yes.
I don't know whether it's showing now.
Yes. I can see it. Can everyone else see it? Indeed,
Okay.
Marion, 5 years ago, this was not a requirement. I'm responding to some of the chats.
Okay, so with the CC, this particular document where we show so, it not been the part of then basically the type of talks. Now, if you want an ID card, you want a driver's license, you want a passport or any other or work permit in a salon, you need basically for get an NIN that all these immigration agencies and all these other groups of government agencies, not for issue. I don't know if my screen is, I don't lost even screen.
I can see, I mean, yeah. Will you see the screen?
Okay. Oh, I hope I've not been put off.
You've been hacked.
Probably. I hope not. Okay.
So,
yeah, so you see now say effective June 1, applications for work permits, resident permits, and other immigration services must include the NIN as a mandatory field. So basically, that's a cabinet policy. So NACRA, Immigration Department, and Labor and Social Security don't say effective one, nobody not forget passport, not forget work permit, including driver's license now, without produce an NIN. In fact, when we see this document, we don't interview in the last week about 5 senior citizens of Sierra Leone. One of them tell me, say, you go for go take driver's license, na road transport authority. He say, then tell and say, if I get NIN, so you go na NACRA. So I go stop for share this one and see if I will get back my full screen. Okay. Say if I go na NACRA for make it get in, if I get in NIN. So you end up for go na NACRA, for go take the NIN. You find out say NACRA know the issue ID card. So then take them, then forget on this slip. Then they write the NIN. I want small like receipt. Now they give you receipt. We don't register. Then give you the receipt. Say go. Look at the NIN now. Up to you go to several days. You know able forget them. For make you get the NIN. This is not the testimony of the individual who we interview to find out what is the process of getting an NIN. Another senior citizen, by the way, also who we interview say instead go for take a passport. I mean, go take a birth certificate we need, because if you need for use that birth certificate today for a particular service, immigration service we need. So you go, then say for go bring an NIN. So you get for end up for go now the birth certificate office, say forget for bring an NIN before they issue a birth certificate. This is not birth and death. So you go na NACRA. This other person say him be able to forget the receipt from NACRA because he get connection inside it. He know somebody who senior, they were able to help him for make it get the receipt. Among the 5 people who we interview or who we talk to on this question, only that person, now the person we talk say, in go day, the following they able get in receipt. We get in NACRA, you go now before then get a birth certificate for go. Why this reference important? It's important because 3 weeks after when they begin implement this, on June 20, now in Parliament, receive or introduce the current bill that they call the Public Elections Act of 2022. And interestingly for we, and not surprisingly, interestingly, but worrying as well, we find out, say, the national identification number, who we don't talk about now, we be say, you got to go to NACRA for get her, for make you get birth certificate, or get passport, or get ID card, or get work permit, or get driver license. They don't make them part of the registration detail whatever collect from you. So basically, you cannot be considered properly registered if you don't have the national identification number. And the reason why we also no go discuss that particular change, because this change also, why they reference this example, the contract example where Parliament approved in March, the cabinet decision in March regarding the implementation of this policy, and the communique signed by NACRA and Immigration Department, basically the government agency that were responsible for the issuance of identification document. So we're responsible for the issuance of identification documents. Then don't make now an official policy say you therefore need an NIN. And now, surprisingly enough, or interestingly enough, and worrying enough, we parliamentarians then they discuss a document again. We don't decide for include the national identification number as a mandatory requirement of the voter register. Now, few parliamentarians, including one way arrogantly tell me, say, I know they read well, I know read the document well. You say, clause 24, we go even for comfortable for we the lay people away and say we know they read well. We'll call on section 24 of the current draft, we then get, or the current bill, we then get in front of them. He say, make I go read that. Because according to that, there's proof of registration, proof for registration. I go want to make Mr. Massally take time and read that part there for we in the new bill, so that people go read what and they say, that we're able to compare them. Because this MP tell me, say, I have not read the, he say, me not read the bill. And I know if I read that, I go look section 24. So my response to him was, go in a public and make your statement, say what you will say, not so. Because what we want for you people to tell us, okay, we put NIN inside the thing, but not to that way, like you not get like a register. They will not get problem with that one. They was okay. So tomorrow when it comes, we're going to reference you. Now that me tell her, please go to the public, go na AYV, go na SLBC, and go na the public platform and make the statement, tell me what's inside the law and what it mean, so that we're not go misread that. You don't understand. But I remind the MP back, tell me so, tell her, say, but if you never read, a land book pass you. So you don't see. By the way, that MP, they know to the MP will get at this meeting. No? So make one office, one not suspect that, say that this MP. Ma just make that disclaimer they wanted. I don't know if other MP do, but the MP with me they see now. I know to talk so. Now in one why in company. Then they send for say, I can find out if I don't read the law. And if I don't read, and I don't read and find out. So I tell her, I say, Paddy man, I must know say I'm more educated than you. I will take you insult, but I do that. So please read for we this section 24, where they don't ask you for read. More we see how you relate proof of registration, I think. Section is that the title 24. Of the is that the title of the clause or quote and unquote section?
Proof or claim. Proof of claim for registration. Okay, proof good. Of claim for registration. 24.1. A registration officer may, in satisfying himself that a person is entitled to be registered as a voter, request from the person any of the following: A birth certificate or a naturalization certificate. B, a statutory declaration giving particulars of his birth. C, the testimony of a member of the local council in the area of his residence. What about hers? D, national identification number. E, any other satisfactory evidence of his entitlement to be registered as a voter. That's it.
Okay. So basically, this we don't get a register, you know. So the register talks say, if you account for register, the registration officer for include your name, your date of birth, your national identification number, the place where you register. These are the details of the voter register. This is what it should have. And if we verify whether a voter has registered or has properly registered or completely registered, all of the listed information regarding the register will be included in the voter register as the mandatory law, because you're not going to register, you're not going to go vote if you're not properly registered. Yeah? Because I got to check, including even when you register and when you vote and which you vote. Again, for be part of the required information that should be contained in the voter register. Now there are provisions regarding the amendment of the voter register and all of that. So we get for deal with that on a separate conversation for the sake of argument if we want to. Now on this other section, they say if you show up for register, the registration officer, you know, claim for register. Now everybody get forget an NIN. If you didn't a salon, you did under NACRA in database. You don't go take NIN, and this NIN is going to be given to citizens and non-citizens, national identification number. So the only way a registration officer is going to determine whether somebody will get an NIN will come forward for register, because you get for proof saying a citizen of the country. For me, you vote, you get for be a citizen. Only citizens in a country get the right for vote. In this case, even naturalized citizens, because I don't begin to talk about that in the current proposal of the law. Okay, so now you get the right for vote. So how they would know say you get right for register? You get for show, you get for present a citizenship, proof of citizenship in this case, or claim to citizenship. You get for provide a claim to citizenship or proof of citizenship will make you qualified for be registered, for be entered into the voter register. That is what section 24 in our own reading implies and means. Now it's the subject of interpretation. So thank God we get an MP in this meeting. Maybe they are thinking about it differently. In our own reading of it, the section, that particular clause 24 that lists a alternate say for when you prove citizenship or you right to register, you can show a birth certificate. You can show a birth certificate. Secondly, or you get for show a national identification number, or any other, the listed document, or maybe a competent citizen within the area, either a chief, a member of parliament, or anybody when a respectable citizen go able to testify, say this person here, na citizen, and not only citizen, is ordinarily resident in this area. Usabia, if you don't Chief Almami, they talk say, pa Massally, or pa Massally, we can talk say, yes, Asabi Chernoh, he don't do this boy, I don't do this area na for 7 years, I don't see, na my neighbor. In fact, na my neighbor in Peking. So it's okay, yes, pa Massally na chief, na the area head man, na imam, na pastor, or na the honorable na the area. In fact, the honorable will write letter give you go, okay. But here is a question. Make we say, you not get birth certificate, you not get all of that, but the chief could testify, say yes, not true. You na citizen. Now, okay, they say for register you. What are the information what you need for making you completely register? It take me back to the clause 13.1a, which is the listed information, the data, the biodata that should include the national identification number, way for separate you from the non-resident, from the resident non-citizen who has a national identification number. There are no two ways to getting around that. So this is why in the case of the Africanist press, we asked that make parliamentarians, the first position was make parliamentarians are discussing an important legislation dealing with the amendment of the Public Elections Act 2022 and the Political Parties Act 2002. And they are doing so without consultation with the people and without the input of the people. Okay, that is not to say they don't have a right to change the law or make any law. As I say, we don't establish that on the get-go. It's the right of Parliament or the responsibility of Parliament to make law. It's also the responsibility of Parliament not to make bad laws or laws that affect the rights and civil liberties of citizens. And in this case, then I will first call, when we make that, the parliamentary opposition leadership in particular, then they then call on the relevant institutions of government for provide the soft copy of the document to them for circulation to their constituents. And as at the time when we made that call, we had already copies of these documents as they were taken to Parliament on our own part as Africanist press. And when we make that one day, so after we make this, I received 4 copies. Okay, subsequent to that, we received 4 electronic copies. One from the member of Parliament sent to me via WhatsApp. I think that member of Parliament is on this, and 3 other members of Parliament sent me, and I received 2 other copies anonymously from numbers I do not know who are not part of my WhatsApp list. We took that document, copies of this document sent by these people, and compared it with the copy that we had received, which was taken. We only make this call on the day that the pre-legislative meeting starts, or after the day of the pre-legislative meeting. That day we make the call highlighter, the post is on my Facebook page. Why I'm making that reference here? Because we never wanted to have a situation where we will say, this is what is in this document that we've received, and somebody come in and say, no, you've received the wrong document. And to tell you that, when I made that comment, some private citizen wrote on my Facebook page and said, that individual said, he'd been present at Parliament and during the pre-legislative discussion, and if they get a document, we've been get, they find out it's different from the document where the MPs then get. To the extent that the person say, we are quoting from the wrong document. Then I told the person, no, I haven't. I respond in the Facebook comment. I'll go look at the history of my Facebook post and the chats around. Because usually I don't respond to chat on my comments on my Facebook. I just read them and just ignore. Sometimes I don't even read them. Because, But in this case, I had to reply to this person because I know the individual is a lawyer and all that, and say, I have not even posted the any document. I have just made reference to this and called on MPs to provide their constituents or the public the document that they have. And truly enough, I received multiple responses from MPs. Like I say, almost 7 copies of the document the following morning sent to me. So we compare, and that was when we published our first article. We highlighted the NIN as a proposed voter registration requirement that has the potential to exclude qualified voters, and who we believe that qualification might happen in areas that are mostly opposition strongholds. And why we made that claim is based on what we observed. What we observed with the NACRA registration that happened last year, because we see the difficulty encountered mainly from areas in Western area, places from people complaining in the Northwest and the northern part of the country. And even at that, we also know that there are significant parts of the country where people do not even know about NACRA, MCRA, or an NIN, who will not even bother about it, or who might potentially turn up to register. And if they need the NIN, if they left the legislation as it is for now, is going to be a potential impediment to voter registration. And why this one important to we? Why we highlight them? Because we think, say, the key essence of any election legislation the world over, now for encourage voter participation, for encourage citizens participation, because when internationally, when we assess the democratic nature of an election, we begin by assessing voter turnout. We say voter turnout was 90%. That is when with significant voter turnout, they tell the quality of democracy in the country. It also legitimizes the significant nature of representative democracy. You know, how many people turn out for vote, therefore do a lot in terms of the maturity of a democracy, and to what extent citizens are interested and want to be involved. And also, it gives also legitimacy to people who end up occupying elective offices, because they know the result of their position, the entrance legitimacy that they require is completely guaranteed by the process by the electoral process. So all over the world, when you do a legislation, electoral legislation in particular, you for think around, that's what democracies all over the world do. Now a process for encourage, simplify, and make it easy for citizens for participate, for make them feel encouraged to participate. That is the essence of voter education. It is the essence of what we can call sensitization. That's one aspect. So what does that mean? The law for make it simple for people for able to register easily. The law for also make it simple for people for able to vote easily. And how people will vote easily, for make polling stations accessible, available, you know, across and even near proximity to polling stations. I think where voter laws or electoral laws supposed for think people will make electoral legislation or think about how do we make sure if they are like when you take the election, the by-election as alone right now, where it just happened. Now Tonkolili, you compare the number of polling stations in that area perhaps and the number of polling stations in other areas, especially in was it Kenema or other side where it happened. You check the proportional distribution of polling stations across regions. There are concerns about the imbalance. You know, you get less polling stations in certain regions and more polling stations in certain regions, including even NACRA, how NACRA registered. There were more machines deployed in areas that are likely considered ruling party strongholds, or where the SLPP believes it can generate more votes. It tends to deploy more machine for registered people under NACRA in the just concluded NCRA registration. Whereas in areas where they believe voters are likely to vote for opposing parties, then deploy less machines. So even in the distribution of polling stations, this is an issue that affects voter participation. So when they make law, these are the issues that should be factored into in legislation. How do we make it compulsory in our legislation to make sure, say, the deployment of polling stations and polling centers, ballot boxes are equally distributed according to region, the regions without balance, because these are all challenges to voter participation. So that's not what the laws are supposed to do. Then again, another aspect of voter legislation, where electoral legislation for do, now how to make sure, say, they reduce the waste in votes, what you can call invalid votes. Invalid votes, now basically now waste of votes, now vote waste. Now like the waste, what we call about leakages in corruption. You don't understand, closing leakages. So the Electoral Commission and parliamentarians who are making legislation, electoral legislation, for think about how to close the loopholes or the leakages for make sure, say, votes do not leak, they not become wasted, they not become invalidated. And that speaks to what we call voter technology. If we develop a technology of voting that makes sure the least educated or the uneducated voter should be able to cast their ballot, vote without even assistance or direction. And the oldest person go able to cast in ballot in a proper way, where we say, get difficult, no even get assistance for doing. Basically, simplify the voter technology. So it's possible to say, when you look the number of invalid votes that they just concluded by election, na Tonkolili, it's so scary. And some of that, in order to deal with the inability or the lack of understanding of how to vote, it could be potentially the technology of voting, the unfriendly nature of the ballot paper. And perhaps the way you crowd candidates closer to each other, in the sense that when somebody thumbprint or, the risk for make the vote become valid in the process of folding, or what to say, go make the vote invalid, not because the individual had not voted properly, but the technology in the process of voting and casting the ballot invalidate the voter, render the vote invalid. So how do we make our laws in a way that it creates and allow us to use technology that reduces the possibility of invalid votes, and making sure people are able to vote easily without the possibility of the vote getting wasted? This is not to say that even in advanced democracies, you do not have valid votes. But I will tell you, say, in advanced democracies, in other democracies or in other environments of the world, valid votes, when they do happen, they represent protest votes, where people think their candidates or the issues on the ballot are not issues they vote for. So they spoil, but they want to cast a ballot. They cast a ballot against all of the issues on the ballot, including all of the individuals on the ballot. People they do in other parts of the world. So there's a process of determining that kind of arrangement. By the way, I want to thank people for their ongoing patience as we summarize this. I know it's a long discussion, but we need for sure where the perspective that we're coming from and why we think this kind of conversation necessary. So having said that, we find out, say, we've been examining this law, this new legislation. So say, is it going to improve the quality of democracy? Is it going to improve, encourage mass voter participation? Is it going to address the issues that we go make sure, say, people participate and make sure the technology of voting or hinder, reduce the possibility of vote waste, invalid votes? We find out, say, largely the provisions in this law do not meet largely some of these democratic requirements regarding the best practices of legislation that enhances and facilitates an easy electoral environment. And why do we raise this? Why do we raise this? We raise this because we feel, say, it is the responsibility of Parliament for make sure say with democracy, because I call it democracy now. That's the with democracy becomes qualitative. The quality of democracy should improve over time. And that improvement can be made through voter education, through best practices, borrowing best practices, addressing what has not worked, reviewed what has affected participation, and all of them here. And legislation is one process through which we address the hindrances to the things the way they hinder the qualitative nature of our democracy, especially when it comes to participatory democracy through electoral politics. Other aspect of this law, we will talk about in terms of proportional representation, how then they go, whether it's beneficial to citizens or it's beneficial to MPs, the question of diaspora voting, whether it's actually reflected or not reflected, and what is the responsibility of parliamentarians for hold this kind of conversation with the Africanist president initiate, where now even the honorable that is in this meeting owe us some kind of how you call that? A OE force. I got to tell what you OE for we organize this kind of meeting where we have over 300 people at least to his disposal for make he can tell we how they think about it. So I was expecting that this kind of conversation and for them precede even the pre-legislative conversation or after the pre-legislative conversation. By the way, I don't receive messages of this Honorable AKK in meeting there across, but he has not raised the questions he raised in other areas where he don't go, now AYV or other places. Maybe I'm wrong. He can't tell me that one day. But yes, having said that, looking at the law, we think say it provides a restriction or makes it difficult. This law as it is, the bill as it is, if it goes into law as it is, especially that NIN in this case, we want to limit with discussion here on that particular subject, it get the potential for exclude majority of voters. And we think and believe, looking at the developments of the country with NACRA's operation, the greatest number of people who are going to be affected by this law will be people who will likely vote for the opposition. In the opposition, are we online? Because I noticed a blank in my own computer. What has happened? Okay. Is somebody sharing something? I noticed we get.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened either.
Oh, maybe somebody try for disturb we meeting. So basically, that we think in our judgment and our assessment of the political landscape of Sierra Leone and these developments we don't highlight, the potential for make voters then become discouraged in registration exist with the provisions of this law, with these provisions of this bill, if it goes into law as it is. And why we say that, if I am an ordinary citizen, where to go drag na Abacha Street every morning at the Common Wellington, I turn up na Wellington for register in the morning, and then tell me say, yes, we know say you're a citizen. If you not get birth certificate safe, you're a citizen, but you get for provide with NIN for me to register you, then that means you get for go na NACRA for make you go get your NIN. Then you come over Wellington, you get for go Abacha Street or Duff Court or Magazine Court for go sell. You go na NACRA, you find out it's going to take you 1-2 hours, maybe during that registration period, 200 people turn up na NACRA. You go to the this kind of line way long so. What you go do? There is every possibility you will return to Abacha Street and decide, say, you go sell. So you will not go to, since you are not a candidate, now vote for candidate, you will find that your material interest, you daily living, your money business, it will become much more important to you than for even go, say, I will go to Napna line and NACRA for go register. You have to be very, very committed and abandon. That will be the reality of most people. So why can't we make a law that will make it simple for people to register without necessarily going through those difficulties to register? That is our point. That is the first point. The second point is, suppose now nobody can say they know you. You therefore need a birth certificate for register. Or the electoral officer decides, say, according to the clause 24, that if somebody therefore bring birth certificate, we suspect, say, you suspect, say, this person here, you're not satisfied. Say, for example, me na Fulaman. I come up and say, although you're not Fulaman, we believe sometimes you're not Guinea man, or you're not Madiguma, you're not Sosoma, sometimes this na a Guinea you come out, or na Liberia you come out. You suppose for sure say, you know, now you need a birth certificate for sure say, indeed. You suppose for a register. Now you go na birth and deaths right now. See, they go take birth certificate. What in birth and death go say, since it's now an official government policy for make you get an NIN. You got to go to NACRA for go get an NIN for can't get your birth certificate, because that's the procedure for me to prove your citizenship. So by the time you come on, you go to NACRA for go to line day and get your receipt for get your NIN. You get your NIN and go register. I see the honorable. Yeah, we come to you. We
want for talk.
Oh, you want for talk?
And I said, this is the government meeting, you know.
But the problem is, this is our own meeting. There are more than how many people here who want to give you the privilege as a honorable member of parliament. But you had this privilege. You get access to AYV where we not get access to. You get access to SLBC where we not get access to. You get access to 98.2 where we not get access to. You get access to all the radio stations in Freetown. No, I'm being honest. Let's admit that. You're not going to come heckle with meeting. This is our own meeting that we've organized. We are magnanimous enough for even open them up for make you come in. And there are more than 100 people here. We decide, say, we go for recognize you present because we say you're a member of parliament. If you don't take your responsibility for come now with meeting, we don't be respectful enough for acknowledge your presence. But please allow me for make we case, we done. No matter how long it take you, you will get the time for respond. But this is not this we decided as Africanist for close this meeting and decide say we're not going to even encourage people to kind of Zoom. But we did this because we want to have a participatory process. Okay, so we open them back to you for make you come. And among all the people waiting, and the only person who don't call the name, it's not because you are much more significant a citizen than all these other people, but because of the role we play. You don't understand? So when we make we case as citizens, allow we for make we done. Then we give you the opportunity for me, you reply. And a privilege for we also for talk to you directly. And a privilege to all the other people within I have for talk to. We are happy that you are here. That shows you respect the people in this place. Because none of the other MPs are here. But please, honorable member, allow we make we get the opportunity for express ourselves, an opportunity that we don't have right now to do through the radio stations, which you have more than we have. You get parliament, you get all the platforms in Sierra Leone to do this. We are trying to build our own platform so we will have an opportunity to talk to you people. So if you have decided to come to our community meeting, let us do the rules. Let us control our meeting. I hope I not offend you by that statement. If I offend you, I apologize. But I just want to make sure that we do not appear as if we are preventing you from saying something. We just want to be respectful and also to be respected as citizens here in our own process. I apologize if you feel offended by that. But don't take the opportunity we've given you for granted, because we do not have this opportunity right now. You can walk to AY. You were on AYV. You were on AYV the other day. You talked about the elections in Tonkolili. I watched you. I was patiently hoping you would talk about the Elections Act. You never did. You also not talk about all the conversation about Yeri. I'm just saying. So that opportunity I don't have. It's an opportunity you take for granted that you can be invited to national radio stations in Sierra Leone. As a citizen, I don't have that right. They don't give me that opportunity, including, in fact, I want you now for taking up that responsibility, ask SLBC as a public broadcaster why they have refused to even hear the interview they interviewed me, because of your responsibility. So I want you to note that. It's a concern coming, and I will want these people in this forum who are in this meeting to make a call to you So you can make a call publicly to SLBC why they've conducted an interview with me in response to my work that they discussed, and they refused to publish it. And as an MP, you get the right to do that for me. By the way, I also want to commend you because over the past years, you have been one of the only MPs, or one of the few MPs, who have stood in the well of Parliament and asked that the Africanist press publications should be discussed or factored into the debates in Parliament. And that is something we have noted. So we were also, in saying that, we also want to recognize that role that you play, which is no small thing in a Parliament like that, where there is hostile debate. Anyway, sorry, I think I don't knock the MP in head past back. How would I say? People's power.
For Nakamak, they can make soap are we. I say they make power we. But we don't for.
I don't think
we know how they catch up. We know how they catch up. We know how they catch up. Okay, Chernoh, a couple of things. First of all, there are some questions.
Yeah.
But one thing we not clear to me, hopefully you will make it clear. Maybe some people can get similar issue. Now the national identification number and the two-sided way inside the 2022 bill. It's still not clear to me because the first one, it clearly they say you must have these things. But then in the second mention, they give you either or these, they give you options.
Yeah.
So
that this make I think say a very good way we get Honorable AKK Naya. That one of the things that we ask the question, if we move from a seat way, ask the question again.
Yeah. So basically, the national identification.
Just make your hands for the area. Okay, good.
It don't vex by you.
I don't vex by me. That the only opportunity we get forgive the MP the public hammer at the head.
It feels so good. Hammer this man all the time on WhatsApp. You know, say you don't know forum. They hammer all the time.
That's a secret. We don't know where they know.
Okay. Honorable AKK, the question why they asked now the difference between the two.
Please, Honorable, note that one day. Note the question he's asking.
The national identification number is mentioned only twice in the bill. We don't talk about the two areas then. But the first one is a little different because in a mandate, you see, you get forgetter. And they put the national identification number first. And then in the second one, they make a more of an option, either or. So at that moment, say, wait, somebody get for proof you claim, you get options. But for the registration itself, you have those four things, and then you have four other things in the bill. So what's the difference between the two then is I guess if we'll unmute you. You can unmute yourself now, can you?
Any other question, Dave?
Yes, there are other questions, but it is now.
Okay, let me answer that day first. Yeah. Because, Honorable, if you get any other preface, now we want preface regarding the law. We don't give you opportunity.
I will surely.
Okay.
Thank you very much. As I typed this on the group, I just parked by the roadside, and I talked to on this issue. I did right snacking, so Mindle Street and that park so. And I just lent table and chair. You see my phone and lens for light for myself. So I afraid let me phone not go off before I go home.
Oh.
I make able to say time. Not to say I want to rush you. I get patient for listening to this. And by the way, I know they talk to you because I am just a member of Parliament, but I talk to you in the capacity of one of the mouthpiece and the PROs of the opposition members of Parliament, and the one where they lead this consortium for educate people on this electoral bill. Firstly, I don't hear you over and again, you say members of Parliament come with a bill. Well, I need to learn from you better. I know you are an educated scholar and an researcher. But one thing we know as members of Parliament, you were privy to have the document before Monday. As members of Parliament, we only preview for get this document on Monday and doing the privilege. We receive on Monday, then count on a Parliament Tuesday for a debate. Our position was clear and sincere. I also remember on the very day when they get the privilege, I sent you the copy, the link of the privilege, and I shared it with other Sierra Leoneans who I believe say always interested in national issues, even when they're not in a salon. And I remember I also say, when I send you the document, I say, if there are issues in this bill you think it's important for us to discuss as opposition MPs, as Sierra Leoneans, our doors are open to have those conversations. After prefacing that, when we don't have the privilege, when the Mawe they present, Fatoma present, and say they use NIN number in this. If you listen to the response of the NP, where I will post again on my Facebook today, I will send the same, I will share them on my Facebook page, I send to you. All the MPs in the room agree or say the NIN number is a non-starter. All the MPs. By the way, we are not responsible to draft laws. And under delegated legislations, these are delegated legislations sent to Parliament by institutions. And the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and they pilot this bill. So it comes with a Parliament, they explain their own way. After they explain done, we tell them, say, we cannot debate this bill on Tuesday. And on the day of the pre-elect, the leader of the opposition asks, say, can we have a soft copy of this? And they also say categorically clear, and I say, before that Monday, the leader of the opposition has never seen a soft copy of this bill. So we get a soft copy of this bill on Tuesday. And we say we need to let people know about them. One aspect away, I don't know if people they cast over and again is, if we wanted to sell out, this bill was with us on Tuesday, we would have debated it and passed it into law with ease. But we choose for say, we need to popularize this bill and other people and other political parties within the Parliament, C4C, NGC, we need to come together as a consortium, forget one position. At that point, we come together and we begin all series of meetings with them. I also remember I tell you, say, as political parties, when this thing initially come out, there was an assurance given to smaller political parties, say, with this, then party then will be stronger because proportional representation will help younger parties. So in that relation, we had issues trying to have the other political parties to understand whatever good for them, SLP no go ever present in the bill. So we had back and forth meetings in COP until we reach. I also want to get onto Mami Femi, he will say this to you. We also come together and agree, say, as a consortium, we need to work together. That is when we take the first step. Like the local government, when we had issues with government over the local government act, we involve international partners behind the scene. We wrote letters, we get engagement with them. In this bill also, we also go out and we wrote letters to international communities and partners. And those letters were delivered to those embassies by us, members of Parliament, of all the three political parties in Parliament within a COP. After we deliver the letters, on Tuesday, we can for debate. On that very Tuesday, now deliver the letters then. But I also don't emphasize that we cannot be members of Parliament at the same time we are the journalists. When you talk, say you go over SLBC and do the interview. On that day, when they deliver the letters, we were with SLBC, AYB, 98.1. We know you read the story than they either. But we deliver the letters anyway. We moved from that point. We came on Tuesday. We told the speaker, we decided this, we cannot debate this bill because this bill, we just receive them as members of Parliament, and this is a public election act bill. So the people are interested to have their say in this. The speaker continued to say, no, the debates are gone. We leader and the other leaders of the opposition say, okay, we still need time. If you are debating today, let this debate not done today. Let we get a second debate, a third debate, for let we involve the ideas of the people. Therefore, then debate the first day. We agree, we listen to them, tell the debate's done. And we decided to say, okay, as members of Parliament, after we don't talk to the international community, we need to engage the people. Not because anybody right. No. We take a turn. We went to Kailaung, we went to Chernoh, we engaged Kennyman, we took Magboruka coming down until yesterday, we finally reached McKinney. Along the same time when they do this thing, I also want you understand, say, the PPRC bill was also presented on the same day with this electoral act, but it was poorly presented and issues the way they raised it from the village, where also now that very first way we say we make the return and go do a reprint of the PPRC amendments them. So they brought it again to us. So as we wait for this electoral bill, we also get this PPRC act where they amend. When we take the view to the people, we continuously share the link to other people. They do radio programs, live meetings, with the interview people, and we share with you and other Sierra Leoneans across the country. We also share with the international community. For me, that was our job also to ensure, say, we popularize this. When you go to a radio station, like when I go on AYV, I don't determine what is in their plate. I am invited to discuss the result and the outcome of the by-elections na Tonkolili. I not go left that one day, I go begin talk about an electoral act. No, I don't have that question that they ask me, just like what they are. I know what they are now, I begin talk about Leone Star, how Leone Star win the game or why they don't win the game. No, that's not why I'm here. After we don't do all of that process, we return back Naton today, and because the debate for continue, and when you read 108 of the Constitution, you know they amend a constitutional provision in a bill without, don't deal with the provision itself, not the Constitution. So what we can today, the first thing we do, we raise the issue of the laws where they, like one, the date of presidency, the time for presidency is entrenched in the Constitution. The process then they wait for use. But this new law, they say we for change them, now we forget a fixed date. If you are having a fixed date, one thing we need to know is if they contravene what in the Constitution say. If you say forget 30% seats, it also they contravene what in the Constitution say. Therefore, our position today was we need to forget the Constitution amendments then first. We need 2/3 majority, 2 out. Who's they alter the Constitution before we can look at the bill. We spent over an hour some just on that issue. Finally, they say no, the debate for gone. We still ask for another time because the leader of government business say then they come with the amendments that we have to do with the Constitution by Tuesday. So we as opposition parties are saying until we deal with the constitutional instruments, we have to deal with all the amendments that we have to do with this act, we will not continue to debate this act. So we pause it today, then give it time still. There are sure we of having another time for this debate, meaning we are still in the second reading of the bill when at the debate stage.
Let me just ask a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for explaining this process when I don't go through on our own effort. The purpose of the intervention, I keep repeating, is the fact that we understand the responsibility of Parliament is to make good laws. As we say, that is what we want. So in your presentation, you already talk, say, the NIN is a non-starter, right?
No, let me come again.
Let me, you will get time for address why I just finished my question. Okay. The NIN, no, you don't even hold it, the class. You're making it funny. Okay, continue. Talk before I ask my question.
A blacker.
When we go na committee room 1.
I know what my holy lip now.
When we go na committee room 1 and they mention the NIN number, all the factors we don't raise around the NACA. I see the try to emphasize it affected the north more than the southeast. But even the MPs will come out, you get the link. If you show the link now, you go see everybody will respond to that way. All the MPs vehemently condemn the NIN number. Because one of the things will be happening in that registration, not just the faulty machine, the time allocated to regions was just 10 days. In 10 days, they will already start picking whether below 18 years, the voters and non-citizens in 10 days. So therefore, the entire process itself was questioned across the board. This is one of the three happened. But I want to address the NIN after I don't lay my premises. You give me opportunity for lay premise. Do you allow do am? Okay. Now, after we already speak today, we don't say, as a parliament, for procedural issues, there is no way, no parliament in the world can do a bill where they amend constitution without first of all amending the constitution itself. So, who's are we there as opposition MPs? Who's are we all? Who's are we get right? Now the fact say we will refer the constitution, we will refer back to the constitution and get an instrument for deal with the constitution. Now we all don't agree as a parliament. The leader of government business say they count them provisions and the way to affect the constitution. Also, what all of the people know what the SLP do in this bill. When they get for deal with the issues that we get for do with the amendments, they're not put it in the bill except for like the presidential date, the 30% in the inside the bill. The other one, then they inside the PowerPoint presentation what they do. So when you come for candidates and say this is a constitutional instrument, they ask where is it in the bill. So technically, as lawmakers, we understand say that was criminal itself by the ECSL. So they're not a new opportunity for saying at the bill, but it then at the PowerPoint. So you cannot challenge it on the PowerPoint because the PowerPoint is not the legislation.
Okay,
so
let me ask this. Make a ask this question. You don't already highlight the process when I don't take, okay, for educate people in EU narration, because we also get for control with meeting. You don't understand. So you don't highlight already the process when I don't use for taking the law to the people with the tour all side, because as far as me they see the links where you send, now I see you don't go to the provincial part. We don't ever see a major discussion on this law to the public. And thank God we get people in there, apart from let me still is what I'm
I just breathe out.
Yeah, a good question. It's not an argument. It's not an argument. I'm just stating
no,
to you.
It will never be.
It's just I'm just stating to you exactly what we have observed. And this could be also the voices of other people. We watch. As far as this legislation is concerned, if you claim say we have not been know about the law until during the pre-legislative meetings, soon I get. Okay, you don't go across the country for go and talk about that. When I don't do the pre-legislative arrangement, I don't do the first reading. Why is it that only today when I raise the unconstitutional aspect of the procedures? That's one. You don't understand. So regarding whether when I hold this law, and I accept the explanation. For me, our intention here is to make sure Parliament or parliamentarians do not pass a law that will affect citizens' ability to participate in the electoral process. As long as we get that guarantee from parliamentarians, our issue, we have no issue with that. You understand? The reason why we had to intervene and highlight, because we knew a law has been taken to Parliament, and parliamentarians, nobody in other parts, in other democracies, what parliamentarians do, they hold a press conference. From the day of the legislative discussion, they hold a major press conference in which they highlight other politicians in other countries, including Africa, not to America, no matter, I tell you, politicians that we know. And if I am in your position, what I will do, if I represent people, when the legislation don't come, that has so much that I think is a non-starter, including an NIN, the first thing what they do, I go hold a press conference, a major press conference for that matter, and somebody like you will respond for yourself and tell the audience, tell the public, not to Facebook link, we're going to a small radio station at Chernoh or Makeni or Kailaunu. I will hold a major press conference in the capital city of Freetown, invite major radio stations, and tell them we have received a bill that has this and this, the NIN and all of these other provisions, including the fact that it was not brought to Parliament through the proper procedures. Okay, that's what politicians in Zimbabwe, in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in other democracies, that's what they do. They want their people to know that this is the progress, this is the process. That's what parliamentarians do. So I'm not saying be a journalist and go around and make news. No, your responsibility as an MP, as far as I know, therefore inform me as a citizen what is going on in Parliament, what Parliament has brought. What, if you say Parliament not be aware of the legislative, the drafting of the process, Parliament and MPs were unaware. We all know that this is not a private member motion. It's not a private member bill, okay? It's not something that a private member, even when private members develop, they do it in consultation with others. And so we may see again a legislation, like for example, the welfare bill. We had this argument first back and forth. People said it was leaked, that it was not. Some people claimed it. No, I just say that the discussion will be very. The reason why some of these in conversation, why these things become an issue is because our parliamentarians, and thank God you're here, do not inform the people, okay, of some of these things. I don't think we have to come to a situation where citizens will have to ask parliamentarians what is going on in Parliament. So I think say for the mobilization where you go around, or the sensitization campaign that you've taken in the provinces, as you've highlighted, I am surprised that you did not think about doing it in Freetown first, for example, calling a parliamentary press conference where this thing will have been announced, including highlighting the X, Y, and Z provisions that you think not comply with the constitutional procedures. And from the date of the legislative time to now, no, we have a right to interrogate you as an MP, because this is our own meeting. You came to our meeting. And since you've come to our meeting,
I agree,
and we appreciate.
I only beg that you give me small.
Okay. So
my phone na street today, and I not get charging.
Well, when I don't make now, you see that back now other thing, because it has to do with the availability of services that Parliament is also.
No, not. I drive and I
okay. Make a complete my point. Let me just complete my point.
Thank you, sir.
That we appreciate this premise where you don't lay first, in terms of the meeting, the efforts that Parliament has done, and the fact that we have not been know about this bill, they surprise you with the bill, that the fact that me as a journalist had a copy of the bill before it was taken to legislative, that's my business. I get access to things. It's the nature of my job, okay? So if you, the MP, say, I had that access and you in Freetown do not have that access, I pride myself that I can have that access. The second thing is the fact that for the sake of the conversation, I am surprised that as an MP or members of Parliament, when you were given this legislation that you've highlighted, have all these things, you did not hold a public conversation, for example, a press conference, which I know other MPs will do, to inform the press, because that is one of the avenues you do, to inform the press about that. But instead you said you took letters. You took letters to all of these things. And the constitutional question, that's what I wanted to raise. The constitutional question, in fact, these are questions have sent to me by a viewer, where he said, "Make I ask you this question. Why did you take the law to the, why should they take the law to the people with the TOR you've just highlighted, if it was actually unconstitutional in the first place? The process was unconstitutional. Why did you not spend the time highlighting?" Hold on. Let me just finish. You will have time to respond. We'll give you time for response. We know to Abbas Bundu. Yeah, this is a people's conversation. We want to get clarity. So why did you not spend that time highlighting to the people before yesterday, before today? And if I remember in the proceedings today that I saw in Parliament, Honorable Gevao, for example, had to put it that would have not come up with the issues that you. I'm not saying he's right. I'm just trying to say that, I'm reading to you questions coming to me from audiences that we Noebu asked you this question now. This is sent to me directly. This person is saying you should have spent that time highlighting to the people before yesterday why the bill was not going to be debated. Okay, but it appeared, according to the schedule and the communication from Parliament, it was scheduled to be debated today. And the constitutional question or the legislative procedures regarding the question only emerged today. In fact, if I remember, I saw a tweet from one of I think it was a tweet from JFK, who had raised the question of the fact that the procedure for presenting the bill itself has not been complied with. So all of the discussions from the pre-legislation to the first reading to where you are at second reading, when these issues have been raised, your audience just got to learn about it, including the fact that there has not been a major public announcement from MPs regarding what is in this bill and why we should not be anxious about it, and including the fact that some of the provisions we have raised with NIN is a non-starter, or all of the other above issues. We have not, by the way, I just want to preface the fact that we were just limiting our concerns to NIN. We get other concerns with this bill that we've not, because if we say the spend, we know we'll go. So that make, we will appeal to to take us to question of proportional representation, all of, because we get our own interpretation and our own implications we will fear with proportional representation. So we just want to limit our conversation to the aspect of the conversation where we don't say. But we appreciate you highlighting the efforts that you've made as a member of parliament and the PR person for the opposition members of parliament as you lay them out. So I just want to point this out to you before I forget. I don't know if Mr. Massally get other questions in the chat that people want to post to the MP before his phone goes off.
So you're on mute. Is he going to say something? You're on mute. Okay, unmute yourself. Okay. Oh, let me give you Abdul.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I'm glad with the conversation. I really don't glad with the conversation, and at least we're making much more progress as Sierra Leoneans. What's more important in this conversation is that the conversation is for all of us as Sierra Leoneans. No, I'm fortunate for being on our own platform. So why did you take the debates to the provinces where say a faulty already? Also, now we not say not to every aspect of the bill get constitutional provisions where they need for amend. Like the PI way, the immense judicial way, we all are not things already for talk about in this conversation. They not get that issue there because Indian are constitution already. So they not get that problem there. The problem we in get the interpretation of that section hidden at the constitution if it's applicable now. So you cannot say because that one they're not faulty. Other issues in the way faulty, for flag the issue way faulty. I'm also glad that they mentioned the issue of the NIN. I don't start initially say when they introduce them, the way talk about the NIN, now the room. Mind you, privilege is not part of the lawmaking process. It starts from the first stage. The second stage, now the MPs that they get in for talk. A critical bill of this nature cannot be read in a day if you say it for the very first time. I also like the reputation where Chernoh they make say, if now we they claim, we know they claim, we not get nothing for protect Naya and Parliament not a secret society. If you not believe that the first time we ever see the document, I know you are a perfect researcher. Research all over the world until we say, no, at so point when we don't see this document. And a sensitive document of this nature, I am sure not only one more, instead of agree say, he received this document from over 5 MPs. It shows how important MP take a role in bringing out issues of national concern. And I think when I pour this message to him, I asked more than 5 times, that we ask other people them. Again, no, we accept say members of parliament are not perfect in everything. Therefore, as members of parliament, we also above on the public. People were witty enough, people were get the ideas where they progress we work, including lawyers. We forward this thing to them, forget them say. And those people are also expert, but they are also very busy. I know they expect if I send something, for example, to the legal team of the APC on Monday and on Tuesday when the soft copy come out, I will able to get them back by Wednesday, Thursday. No, people have to bring their ideas on board. Why we late? We're not late. The second stage, the second stage of the bill reading up your argument for sure say this thing not get for let you know say we're not late, for let you know say we are still procedural. When we do until the leader of government business say, okay, yes, this is true, we go discontinue this debate, we will continue this debate, but we go carry the instruments, the constitutional instruments in the form of a bill for amendment by Tuesday. For me, that is a big gain for we all, where they try to address issues we have to do with on constitutionality. Now we lost the way they make. I also don't say this to Chernoh in private, in groups, and I'll say it again today publicly. The role where Chernoh they play in the current democracy, in the fight against corruption, in holding leaders accountable, is unprecedented. So for we, where they raise issues, we have to do lawmaking, issues we have to do with the current state of the country, like how we did so in the lawmaking. For us, it's an opportunity, because when they raise the issues, anytime we raise issue, we go again, we read over the issues, then they ask critical minds again, like for say this is what has come up. Not, by the way, not to Chernoh no more raise issues around this bill and this NIN. Again, I not forget this NIN. Not forget say the first way it surfaced now with body politics. Now when the NACRA boss a year ago wrote a letter to Parliament to NEC saying NEC forget the data from the N and the NCI registration. And we come as members of Parliament, members, we wrote a letter again to NACRA saying it is not their business. They're not a part of the registration of voters. So we don't begin lock that gets there from the first way they talk about. When time they talk about he's been worried, we are more worried because the domato we don't lock because of illegality. Now in this law, whether before we as members of Parliament, they try for open Corneli for let them get a floodgate of and the NCI registration into the voter list. It is impossible. I want to use the word that word me party use. It is impossible. And not possible, and it cannot. So the truth about it is we are in this together. If then deprive voters for votes, now me as member of Parliament to the contest, it affect me first, now me constituency. It affect me first, now the constituency. It affect the chances of me or political party for win an election. For God's sake, I am sure that the APC will win the next election. Therefore, what's not the reason for sell? Who do they sell to? Who do they buy? Who buys this thing? Who do they sell to? We are committed as opposition MPs. Yes, there are challenges in the bill. That is why we beg Sierra Leoneans across the world. I am always accessible. Nami WhatsApp, Nami.
Unfortunately, oh, okay. The MP did it.
I didn't phone that. He said we get low power. But that's a good image of him there. Okay.
I don't know if he, okay.
He never answered the question really between the two NINs.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we'll come back. But I see we get two hands raised. Usman Temu Kamara been on the raising hand for some time.
All meeting long. I forget on the floor.
Yeah, more give the opportunity for say something.
But we have many comments and questions in the thing too.
Yeah, maybe we allow short comment from them. Then from there we go. I hope the MP will come back.
But before we get to this guy, the MP, at least he give me some assurance. He didn't totally there against that.
No, although, so the essence of this meeting, at least we don't hear it from the MP say, the questions we don't raise regarding NIN, they are not out of place. And one thing we don't take away from this we don't learn from this conversation. But we need this, we need the MP for make this kind of conversation, this kind of commitment and statement. The MPs need to make that kind of statement publicly so the people know side and up on the bill. So that is the concern. Apart from what he has narrated here, we not get any in fact, if you look the chart inside this meeting, inside some of the things, people have never had that kind of a statement that Densedo reject the NIN. We never hear that. What we don't hear in the conversation regarding the bill, not just the proportional representation aspect. And in the second conversation, we're going to talk about the implication of the proportional representation. And again, the MP claims say that the first time they see the bill on Monday. And since Monday to determine and raise the constitutional issues regarding the constitutional procedures with the lack of constitutionality in the process was today. After all of these discussions we don't make regarding why the MPs have remained silent on the bill since they received it on Monday. And it's so interesting that people who are in charge of making the law, we will read the law before them. We will read and raise these questions before they do. And we'll continue and at the essence of this conversation. And we are so happy that we have the MP where they talk on behalf of the members of parliament, the opposition members of parliament, which means we have on record a committed statement from the members of parliament that the NIN is not going to make it as part of the final legislation. So basically, if they object to anything inside the bill, then one of the things then what we expect say the law not supposed to make. So in the next that's a very good statement. We may want for comment and for Cantel with that, because that is one of our major concerns, that the law in itself, the inclusion of the NIN, and we write for raise that particular issue. We don't flag them, say it's a voter, it will hinder people and for register. So now, in don't tell we say it's not going to be part of the electoral arrangement. But at the same time, we got for now pay attention for make sure say by the time the law becomes the law, that particular provision is not part of the election law. So the MP don't say, then we stand up against, and so we look forward to the debate for C. And not only that, he also tells us that even the SLPP MPs are against it. So the question for we, what are the thinking? What was the intention of including such a provision in the law if it is a hindrance to everybody, a hindrance to democratic participation? Okay, the MP, they join way back.
Voter suppression.
Yeah.
Another aspect of it.
Honorable, you don't come? I don't admit them, but I don't say I admit. So that I don't know when I do other questions again. While we wait for the MP for.
Well, then if they give somebody the mic, actually.
Yeah, I don't see say don't go away. Now, Ibrahim,
I don't have it.
I see an Ibrahim Kuruma now.
Okay.
By the way, one for say we are averaging over 400 or 300 people, nearly 400 people online, and we want to recognize the platform and the support that SierraCast TV has given us. And this is a very wonderful opportunity, because we would not have been able to hold this conversation apart from the people online, the people who they watch we now, we're able to connect to Zoom. So basically, able to get access to it through SierraCast TV, and we hope for continue this dialogue series incorporating or using this platform. So one for thank the management of SierraCast TV and the wonderful opportunity we then give for make use of them facilities. Okay, I think we get Ibrahim. Lawyer, you did it? You ready?
Yes, Nadia.
Okay, so carry on. Make I use Alpha Abbas Bunde statement. Carry on.
Sorry.
Yes, you want to make intervention in the discussion.
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much. I think I'll not be the follower, and I just know I see the link this afternoon. I see the link. And first of all, for organizing this discussion, I want for particularly appreciate the effort. This is very good. I think say we need this kind of discussion, and this kind of initiative will help people both at home and the other people away there abroad will not get the opportunity for be hard on subject matter like this one. And I just want to make a few comments about things that we are aware of based on the topic on the review. So first of all, I know you much of the last speaker in position, but I think he may have touched on some of the things then, because nothing that we concern the law, where me basically want to focus on. I know say the last speaker is a member of parliament, and one of the young active members of the current parliament. They do in your role, and I think say we appreciate them for what they do. I also want for state for the record say, me na one person way, I don't work with the parliament in my own way, not directly through what they do, but through some caucus and other people in terms of providing expert advice where necessary, but also discussing national issues, one of which is this particular draft legislation. Now, it came to me on Tuesday, and we came to me on Tuesday with comments. And one of my initial reaction of this particular legislation, now that no member of parliament within wit around them for support a legislation of this kind. Because one, in my own view, now a legislation we crafted in language we now for basically disenfranchised people. It crafted in language we now for empower few sets of people within the community of the election management bodies, forget the authority for disqualify people in their own wisdom, within them things say necessary for be done. It crafted in such a way that it empower all a few people for exercise powers, where now powers where only law now info determine would have for empowered, would have for exercise them power. Then the law for prohibits anybody when they contest an election, forget them power then they. For example, the president get power under this law for do certain things in the way if they contest an election, you not forget rights for do them. So I make comments generally say the thing that they don't put inside it, time not go there for go into the details. But in summary, the thing that they put inside this law, one, they will not have the time to look at it and make meaningful contribution, because in the information I gathered from Parliament, that the law was done without their contribution. It was not introduced to them. The idea was not discussed in Parliament. So in other words, that they not been get foreknowledge. That is the information I got. And so therefore, I say, me on small advice, don't discuss it, don't even start it, because the things that were involved in a law like this, then plenty, apart from just the law itself, the draft law itself. For example, the draft law gets provisions where they tamper with the existing constitution. I say, so therefore, it need time for make Parliament discuss before they look at this particular draft. Parliament need for discuss the constitution itself, whether then get the authority, because even though the constitution may be amended, any other law may be amended by Parliament, because a Parliament may make up, but there are certain provisions in the constitution where Parliament says they have not get right for amend. Now everybody in a saloon gets right and power for amend. So I say, when I get for look at whether they affect this provision, this whole 70-something page, when I get for read them, assess them word by word, and make sure say the meaning of each word, when I interpret them accordingly, and make sure say they not touch on anything one and not get power for deal with. And so you cannot do that when they just introduce the bill to you, then give you just today. You cannot do. Me say when I be a lawyer, I'm not able for reader. I just browse them through. Inside the first 20 minutes where I take the pages, as I know say this not problem law. So I state my position clear. But there are certain important things that I want to mention. Now, over the last couple of years, the last two and a half years, the government don't take a position for deliberately interfere with electoral processes. And in my own view, I don't state this in writing. I don't state them in my tweets, and I don't state them also in my discussions with people where they deal with law. So, for example, there were attempts by the government for do an amalgamation of processes between the NCRA, the National Commission for Civil Registration, and NEC, or now what they call Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone. So what do I mean by that? One institution, they only get right and power for register civil transactions. For example, Ibon Pikin, you register some businesses, somebody come out, somebody can inside today, not only they're responsible for, not NCRA the responsibility. So the other institution, when our electoral commission, now then get exclusive rights and authority for conduct elections. So anything related to elections, now then no more the law give power. So how can you then come and try for bring them to institution and they for work together? So those steps were initially taken, and some of we make bold for saying no, government cannot do this. And we discuss with people where matter in the process of lawmaking, say you cannot entertain or tolerate this kind of thing to happen. So, and I think say at that time, government will retract a little bit, and hopefully maybe feel say they will not come back to it. So, but what they're doing to this law, now for do the same thing, attempt for do the same thing, for put the institution and they together. Now, it violate the constitution. Again, I raised this with parliamentarians. If I entertain them, when I don't already try for do something way unconstitutional, and parliament cannot be seen to be doing something where they are against the constitution. But there is something very tricky now under the constitution, where give parliament certain rights as to where to make people and nobody for challenge them for do what they do. For example, if parliament adopts a procedure now, even though it is against the constitution, you not get as a citizen, you not get the right for challenge and say, then they do something procedurally way wrong for violate the constitution. So in other words, that the parliament can set their own processes and procedures and nobody not get right for challenge them. I say, but however, as parliamentarians, if we not raise them, then it becomes something where the government cannot move on until they set the rectifier. So me, they think say this kind of discussion, and especially when parliamentarians come on, not very good thing. But also as citizens, we get responsibility for engaging members of parliament. Some of we don't engage members of parliament directly. And we don't engage the leadership of parliament also directly and raise concerns. And we continue for raise those concerns and we continue for doing. But one more thing they want to mention before I come to really waiting, I think say we as Sierra Leoneans, as citizens for they do. Now, you go on for ask the question, why would government, including parliament, go on for do a law at this material time where go tamper with people rights for vote freely in the manner in which they don't use for votes or register for votes for the last how many years we don't get democracy? I mean, multi-party democracy in our country. Why would I want to do a few months to elections? That is a question that every citizen for ask a member of parliament. Why would I want to do one? If they not get the answer, then we for as citizens for insist say, don't change our electoral laws. We want and so until we are satisfied, we say this is something that is good for us and we understand them, we would not support it. And I think that any member of parliament will not listen to in constituency and go ahead and support an amendment of electoral laws few months to elections, where people will get an opportunity for understand them. That kind of member of parliament, you have to vote him out. But there's now a trick in that as well. In this draft, long as him say, then proceed. They don't listen to nobody, then go and pass this kind of law.
Mr. Kuruma, thank you. Those are valid points. We appreciate the legal perspective added to the discussion. I think so. You don't enrich the conversation very well. So we will come back to you. Please stay. We just want to make the MP be make Honorable AKK did it now, no so? Okay, good. Yes. You will finish up when the phone go. You want for continue that side and add a few things, because one other people again the opportunity for say a few things in addition, and also for ask you. But this is the thing. I just for me own clarity and perhaps for the clarity of others, I just want to make you restate what you just said regarding the NIN. Position of the opposition, and since you say you're not talking for yourself just as an individual, but others, including what you've said regarding the non-starter. What does that mean? What do you mean by that? That the NIN, if the bill proceeds as it is, it becomes law. You think or you believe it's not going to be part of the provisions of the final legislation, right? Because I don't know if you don't hear me. Hello.
He's on mute.
Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead. You don't hear me.
I get you clearly.
Okay.
First of all, I use also this platform for thank Ibrahim Sorry. Sometimes we know they want to mention people where they help with legally on some of the entire. See what it outline, it tell you say there are certain areas of this bill where you have to do constitutional amendment. I think that's what I said earlier on today. Say if you ever do constitutional areas, then we not venture into until we do the amendment of the constitution. I also tell you this say this issue of NIN not starts today, and I worried on the fact from long before now. It also tells you we don't profile a solution to Parliament. Say we not allow NACA forget anything for do around we electionary process, because NACA cannot get anything for do with elections. I'll also tomorrow personally forward the letter to you what we'll be doing to NACA. So this issue of NIN number, not to today, it starts. Now, part of the SLP and game plan, we don't fit from when they initially started to now. So for we, when I still letter you and you still have the tape with you, on the first day of the privilege, when they talk about NIN number, I say unanimously all the MPs in the room grumble about them and talk about them and show and express the NIN number not probably a reason for stop people from registering. However, now two ways me see the NIN number. When you talk additional, I follow you carefully. One, now the process of registration. Secondly, now the register. When you want the process of registration, there is an option if you don't get NIN. But when you want the issue of the registration, the database, instantly they talk about you forget NIN. So these are the two differences where me self-worry about as a member of Parliament. Because it's possible that they go allow people to go register without the NIN, but when they harvest from the registration for can't get the voters list, they go only consider the people get NIN for the voters. I think that now wait till you share together. So in that situation where it does on the bill, we are as members of Parliament who look out for the best possible option where the NIN not going to be anything where they alter somebody for register or for stop and for vote. Don't forget, we at the field, we don't see situation the way people they go for go register and tell us say, okay, even for vote, say I don't lost my voters ID card, they say can't 4 o'clock, and they go again. So anything where go cost we vote, one vote, as opposition MP will determine for remove with people from this current situation where people find themselves, we go do everything within we powers for ensure say nothing on the way go disenfranchise with people. Disenfranchising voters mean the members of Parliament not they get assurance into elections. How do I talk about winning an election when the people in my village not be registered at NIN, they not be get NIN now, they know they register and no go vote for me? How I go win the election day? So this is a topical issue and it's a painful issue to we. We don't emphasize this before now. Say one of the rigging tactics where SLP don't try to put in place long before now, almost 2 years ago. When they also not just statistics, some of them is people then clear the entire NCRA. Then clear all my way and bring their own people. If you do an analysis of the people they open now, you can find out in one tribe, 9 dominates it. Chernoh and the viewers, we are not drunks. We are not mad people. I get this poor work is a panty me. Where Christmas Jack, if you have food. Because it not just it just go be deliberate. And not even know it, they do their jack back. If we sit down, we allow this bill as it is so. It go to it means that we are drunk, we are mad people. We come on. How we go play with Ayata president? I go put her inside my own food I get for it. Allowing this bill as it is so now self-inflicted problem on we party, on we status as members of parliament, and also, but again, particularly I want to say this. We saw this bill on Monday. It was presented to us for debate on Tuesday. We needed the input of people, not for just some of Leone, no, because we believe say it's a legal matter. You hear what he said this now? He said the powers will then give the president under this bill. Where is my candidate? It drew me attention for good day, and now I'm going to do extensive research on that day and other legislation them around West Africa. What he say? This is what we want from Sierra Leoneans. We are still appealing. We are begging. Instead of you say the MPs are not sell out, bring out your points. Believe me, they buy them. I don't say this to you over and over again. Bring the points raw. The way me they read a particular sentence, not that I don't go better school or me education or reach day, but the way me go read them and interpret them, it's different from how you read them. When they explain today, now they begin to understand, say, okay, there is one process of registration. There is another process of harvesting the data. So our fear is you can register, but you cannot be harvested into the WhatsApp. When I did the 13 kind side and I did the 24 kind side, I read that in tandem with the old bill. So the old act is so clear that if we miss out from this point, so we are finished as a party. Come on. What I don't ask many people in this question. What can the SLP give me now? Where if APC win, I'm not going to get. What are the interest for sale? Who are they buy? We cannot poison our own food and give it to our children. We cannot. Good. And again, we don't say this over and again. Why some people like we always want to talk to people them. We've left everything we are supposed to do and join politics to bring a change in Sierra Leone. Any issue we get to do with integrity to the public space, it affects the personalities. We begin to say they look up to we. And one country as one of the generation will bring that change with Chernoh. So for now we sit down, we connive with a government where deliberately they kill with people and they imprison with people. I think that must be a situation of really a blind man that is also where Christmas blind. When somebody they say they sell out, it's like we blind they will know they see. We curse back. We cannot do this. We cannot be deliberate on this. But again, I want big going forward. So you, other Sierra Leoneans, them. So that is going to be my last one because I need to drive home now. As I say, that's streets apart.
That's good. We say
yes,
one opportunity for saying last
this is how I take your program very serious. So you and every other Sierra Leonean, we get an issue with this bill where things say we need to do more. Again, I don't want shy away from this fact. Say you say why we not bring out the issue early? Okay, I received a bill on a Monday, Tuesday last week. From that time to now, in the bill, we always can get legal opinions from legal scholars. We not only trust the MPs who get when lawyers they move, we also they ask for legal opinion. That one they know they can cheaply and on one day. We also they ask pure analysts like you, like other senior Sierra Leoneans already out of the country for giving their own opinion. That one day for more as you said today. Instead of you talk to me now where you don't post now at this year. I say okay, I can still compare account and with MP4 and follow we discuss them. That is what we do. We also they talk to key policy analysts the way then at government. What in cow with this bill? What it originate this particular kind of bill? I also don't say repeatedly they say members of parliament don't originate bill except it's a private member bill. And even when a private member they originate in bill, it left to them for let it share with other members of parliament. So here with a beg, our integrity is on the line. I am still young. I have a family to protect. I have a generation to come after me. I don't want to muddy my name. If there are issues you have that are genuine on issues around governance issue, believe you me, anytime you post on corruption matters, I don't only read them, I raise them as well, and always they tell government say some of these issues they derail we rating that international community, because for we where don't they follow international issues around the world, other countries they take the issue away they raise very seriously. And for attempt for go after you say no waiting China say so a lie, it also they affect we as Sierra Leoneans. And some of we, I think, maturity and age-wise don't go allow people go down that road. I rather go engage you privately and say, no, can we talk about this? I think I have another opinion. I think you need to understand me from this angle. I think that for me, that's the healthiness of our democracy. We are all in the crossroad. Our people are equally suffering. Any attempt, I must say this openly. This last 1 week, where for me it was a crusade on innocent parliamentarians. When you do you distract me. It's like you're sending soldiers to war, they begin send stone behind them back. Who's all for concentrate? We get for concentrate for see what they can be. We get for concentrate. Our common enemy in this fight. It's a bad legislation where they present to we. What would they want? And every step of the way, we need you guys. So for long make palava utuna is unwise. My mama no cook one pap, then I go begin play with me bikini, and if you don't know that they suffer. Now me. So do you with a beg, with a talk to now. Let we open the space for platform. This is not about responding again. This is about appealing. Because for some things and there again, let's say this, Chernoh. This is not just governance issue. This is also politics. There are certain things where you raise up. You also empower and embolden SRP people to continue to do more wrong, because they not say, okay, this is going to be their position. So let's see how best to go counter them politically. And most times, when they do the analysis here and things on avocado, they open for let people know. Now the time where SRP they bulldoze with most of the laws there. Because you've given them the technicalities already, let's have them in shots. Let's face these realities with you. So now they make we work sometimes, they're very difficult. There are certain things in this bill now. When you did it, if I begin to talk about it now, you begin to talk about it. If I'm sorry, you begin to talk about it. When I'm sorry, you talk me at the court. Let not even mention some of them technicalities and because as you do them, then they put their research and legal team together. How do we do this? How do we go against this? All of this then now we earn. Do ya with a big engagement with us is open. My lines are open. I remember I say one day they don't call me, I don't reject to call. If I don't pick, as soon as I come, I pick up my phone, I call you back. For me, that is what engagement should be. With a big. We are not perfect. Not because we are human, but because we are not educated in all aspects of human life. If they do go into marine laws this show, I mean not a marine expert. I depend on the Sierra Leone when I'm marine expert. For those who say, this is what I see now. We don't get them with many people. I remember the cyber bill came. We talk about them all over. People them come with their opinions. IT specialists, we come with other laws. That part what they say, you can work as a policeman, he arrest you, he shut your phone, and he find something there and charge you to court. They always say you can get one, policeman can get one warrant, you can go now more than 8-10 homes. All of them, we discuss them. I remember the other part where say, if they send something like a nude picture of a child below 18, then you download them. The download number, even when you not share, you download, you possess, you commit a crime. We begin to say, okay, what about people who get automatic download at their phone? They will commit a crime, they don't know. So we do this and say, not to only downloading, you they download intentionally, you keep, you store intentionally, then you distribute them, then you commit the crime. So, but all of that, not only technicality, not only sense, so there are other Sierra Leoneans them, where things say they can add to we own values, where things say they can add to we own job. They help us. And I know one, and I continue to emphasize and say, you have been a blessing to this nation, and you've been a blessing to us as members of parliament. Do your law not cross path and not a good for democracy? We don't want to be right and you are wrong. We don't want to let you right, we wrong. We want to go side by side and make sure so we bring out the issues and address them amicably for the betterment of Sierra Leoneans. This one we call so the MPs are not allowed. Don't trust your MPs. Your MPs are beasts. Why are MPs not this? I swear to God, if you don't send for we 1-1. Honorable MPs, can you look at this area? I think there's something faulty here. Sometimes I don't know deal with yourself together.
No,
and that is how we positively contribute. So we don't work for make it easy. You are at the back, sir. Now beg we the beg. Our families, our children, with integrity, all day in which we do so. Any attempt for discredit we or make we look dishonest also get tendency to affect we picking them. And we, as fathers, we need to protect the integrity of we picking them to in the full view of the public. If we do wrong, come, bring them out. Say, una don't do this. But in this bill, the bill is still before us. The bill is still before us. If we become distracted to defend ourselves, take the bill pass with all the bad things inside. Now me and you get the way. The kind amount of cost that we don't get this weekend, the kind amount of text messages them, the kind amount of disrespectful messages that we don't get as MP, it's just enough for most MPs when are good debaters. If they're going out for debate, they miss this. Most of them point here because we are intellectually paralyzed. We know they think well. Let's say this tone. I don't understand the people of themselves. We know they think well. You they think you grab my money, somebody just grab always the post they make. So once you touch them, 10, 20, they send all to you. By the time you ignore that post, the other post they send 20 to you. They begin, what is your take on this? By the time they explain it and the other post they come. By the time they explain it and for we, true, we don't want to go that far.
Let me just say this. We want to thank you before your phone goes off for the courage where you get for come talk to the people and talk to we. And it's not a war. It's not a war against MPs in the first place. Our job is to make the quality of democracy in our country make a much more qualitative. And part of the responsibility, as I say, in other parts of the world that we know about or traditions, that responsible for MPs for come forward and tell we say this is the legislation, this is what is going on. For at the pre-legislative from the day of the pre-legislative conversation, that is what MPs do in other parts of the world. But I want to assure you, our work has always been to promote and advance democracy and continue. And we recognize your role. You have know that. But regarding the question of sending with thoughts and ideas, everything we write and put in the public domain is about how to help the government of Sierra Leone and the policymakers for advanced democracy. That's how you highlight. That's how you highlight what is going on, including we are not here to antagonize government. We all write about corruption, not the Minister of Finance or the violation of procurement procedures. We want procedures and processes to work for the benefit of the country. When we highlight salaries and salary disparities, we want to make government address them. We are not basically, so when we call on MPs for make the document available to the country, we are not basically attacking or antagonizing MPs. We're basically calling on them and telling them, and this is something I'll tell you privately and publicly, that all what citizens want is to tell MPs how they should be represented. And all what citizens are asking for is genuine and quality representation. That for many years now, MPs, they tell citizens how they are representing citizens. And the scales have turned in the sense that now people have a technology and the opportunity for reach out and publicly tell MPs, this is what and how you should represent us. In this case, our case has been made in the sense that we highlighted legislation and provisions that we think and believe they violate the participation of voters or citizens for participation in an election, which you have agreed. And all we needed from our MPs, our lawmakers, is to tell us that